welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we are going to be talking about DNC primary debates. Obviously, Biden is currently the incumbent, but there has been some discussion on whether or not the DNC should allow or fund debates between the various primary challengers and Biden himself. Is this a good idea? Is this something that the DNC should do, or is this just a terrible kind of a dismissive thing that will hurt the party in the general that we should avoid? Why or why not? And we're gonna just talk about it tonight, and we'll get into it. And keep your openings brief, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion. Synth, you're up. We can't see you. So.
Camera works here now. There we go. Okay.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Synth.
Sure.
Start us off.
Yeah. So, in short, the reason that I support the ability for the other Democrats to be primary challenges, specifically in regards to a debate, is because I think if the Democrats are willing to establish a permanent tradition of consistent primary debates, it helps to promote important liberal values, democratic and intellectual competition, for example. It shows we're an egalitarian society, and nobody's above having their power challenged and being put in a position where they have to justify it. It shows that Biden is fit for the office, that he can stand on a stage, that he's a real person, that the Republican lies about dementia are unfounded, and standing next to a guy like RFK who looked like the platonic ideal of good health. I think that the overall case ends up being pretty overwhelming, but I'll keep my opening statement short so we can get right into the meat of the discussion.
Thank you, and we'll get into it. Next up, we have Fairy Queen, please.
Is that the DNC should not host primary debates against Joe Biden for 3 reasons. Number one, being historical president. No sitting president has participated in primary debates, even in cases where there have been significant challengers, such as Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and George Bush. Hosting a debate against an incumbent sends the wrong message during the primaries. Number two, there are no true contenders. Robert F. Kennedy promotes conspiracy theories and lacks governance experience. Marianne Williamson has never held office and has a failed campaign. And number three, it weakens the party. Hosting a challenger-incumbent debate recalls Jimmy Carter's loss in 1980. Carter's primary clash with Ted Kennedy weakened his campaign and the Democrats' power. In summary, considering historical precedent, the lack of viable contenders, and the potential to weaken the party, it's clear that hosting these primary debates would be detrimental.
Okay, thank you. First-time guest on my show, Talk Done Left. Hi. Oh, you're muted.
Hey, so the reasons that we should have a primary debate are 4. 1, it helps with the optics of Biden appearing like he's either being coronated or that he's being hidden away from the public for poor health. Again, that should help him win because he's appearing next to RFK, who's like a zombie, and all the other candidates, and he'll be appearing fairly healthy on stage. 2 is that it's free airtime. It's time to outline his agenda and set what the national conversation is. You don't get that with a lot of other events. Why shouldn't he take this advantage? There's no reason for him not to take advantage of this. And most of the other candidates on the stage will also be reorienting the agenda towards things that would benefit Democrats in the general. And the third and fourth reasons that we would want to support this is that he has failed on some of his promises, like protecting people at the border, protecting trans people, and having primary debates offers a chance for people to participate and encourage him to be held to account and actually protect the people who need it most.
Thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it. Appreciate you keeping it brief. IRI, go ahead.
Yeah, total waste of time. Biden's been kicking ass. The midterms success, keeping the Republicans down to the little red trickle, totally sapped any opposition to Biden. Everybody serious dropped out or even considered it. Why in the world would Biden debate very serious candidate Marianne Williamson with her previous 1% polling run in 2020? She believes rocks have powers. Not feeling it. RFK Jr. is a guy who thinks vaccines cause autism and peddles Russian disinformation on Newsmax and Fox News all day long. So total waste of my president's time. Not a fan. Don't support it. Don't even think that debates have anything to do with democracy anyways. Like, I'd love to hear the argument how they do.
And I guess that will be a question that we'll be asking throughout the general discussion here. Thanks for being here, IRI. Really appreciate you. Next up, Prime Kai. Go ahead.
I'll keep it really short. Primaries are a crucible And if Biden can't take it up to when dealing with an apparently unserious a challenger like IRI apparently thinks, then how can he stand up to the Republican candidate? Right? Like, if this is going to be a cakewalk, let it be a cakewalk. And yeah, so thanks all for having me here.
Thanks for being here, Prime Kai. Short and sweet and to the point. That's how we like it. Destiny, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to copy IRI and Ferry's arguments. I don't think there are any serious contenders right now. I think that the Republican Party is in a complete and total state of disarray. I think the most important thing we can do is provide a united front, like we did in the House when McCarthy had to run the election 52 different times just to get the election there. I think it makes us look better to have a united front backing Biden. And when there are no serious challengers, when there's no historical precedent for it, and there's no compelling reason to do so, I don't know why we would ever host a debate against our incumbent sitting president.
What counts as a serious challenger? And if there was a serious challenger, would you all be in support?
I think that if there was like if there was a challenger that was polling like 40-50% support in the Democratic Party or something, or at the very least sizable, like a sizable two-digit support, and people were really looking at Biden and like not taking him seriously, I think you could start. That would be like what you would need just to begin to have the argument of like an incumbent debate. But even that wouldn't be enough. But right now, that field is clearly not here.
So
one of the problems of this is self-selecting, right? You've set up a field where there's no debate, there's no opportunity to get any clout on the national stage, no opportunity to get up there. So why would anyone try and join in, right? You've set it up so that no one's ever going to meet that threshold.
And beyond that, right? During the course of a campaign, people grow in popularity as people are exposed to their ideas, as they are taken seriously by the media, which right now is not happening. And so their poll numbers grow. And then by the time they have a debate, then they might be where you're saying, right, give them a chance, but you're not even giving them that.
I have a response.
Neither of these people have any elected office experience, and look at Trump. I mean, it doesn't exactly work out when you have somebody that's brand new to the scene that comes along. So what do you see about these two that is so valuable to put Biden up there? Like, what does Marianne Williamson have? She wants to have an economic U-turn, and she has no explanation how she gets anything done. It's like Bernie Sanders wanted to have Medicare for all in 4 years. Does anybody out there think Bernie would have got Medicare for all in 4 years? No way. Biden's living in reality, and that's why people are supporting him for running for re-election.
So again, this is a sort of circular situation where the reason why there aren't any serious opposition candidates is because no one has the opportunity to actually seriously oppose. If they can't get on the debate stage, what's the point?
If the only way you can have a serious opposition is to just get on the debate stage, then you're probably. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, like if you're at least like a senator or a governor, like DeSantis isn't considered a serious contender on the Republican side because he just wants to get on the debate stage, right? Pence isn't a serious contender because he wants to get on the debate stage. Like, if your only claim to fame for trying to do, and keep in mind, this would be historic, right? That we're going to have a challenge for our incumbent who's already beaten the likely Republican nominee anyway. Like, I don't know why we're trying to like help people write book deals or help people become famous while running in opposition to our president. I don't know why we would do that.
I want to give space to I want to give space to Ferry Queen to kind of get into. So go ahead, Ferry.
The question, why is this the election the time to do this, SDL? We have the incumbency. Incumbency is one of the biggest reasons why presidential candidates like become reelected. Like, it's a huge factor. So why would we give that up to give somebody else space now?
We're not giving up incumbency. The point that both Synth and I have talked about is that Biden gets on stage. He shows that he's not just a walking corpse. He shows that he's healthy. He can speak confidently. He can beat the fuck out of his opponents. If you really think that the other guys are cranks, if you think Williamson's a crank and JFK's a crank, then you should fucking crush them, right? Yeah. So I think this argument doesn't really work. If there's serious contenders,
can I jump in really quick just to reiterate that, to back up the point? So if in the case of RFK in particular, somebody like RFK going on stage and being a crank, it's really, really good for Joe Biden going to the generals to look like he just won a competition. Looking like you've won something means you look like you'll win more things in the future. It's the kind of thing that establishes a certain precedent as well. You can say like you said earlier that you think it's the case that no incumbent president has ever participated in a primary debate. Maybe you're just talking since Ford, and I agree. Right, there hasn't been the norm since Ford. But if we want to take a look at what kind of norms we can establish, I think it's the case that we can still take this particular norm and establish a norm of being challenged. And I don't think it makes Biden look weak. I think it makes him look strong in the face of really weak challengers like RFK and Marianne Williamson, like who you've said and who all of you have said are not serious. They're not serious challengers. The kind of people who Biden would easily stop.
Don't you think it would hurt our image as Democrats to have two clowns up there and a guy who believes vaccines cause autism. I think it would actually cause more damage to the Democratic Party and Biden's chances of winning.
To the Republicans, of course not. That's their kind of guy, right? Like the Nazgul types of RFK.
Republicans aren't going to vote.
Because we want to appeal to these swing voters. Hold on, we want to appeal to swing voters. A lot of swing voters are really big fans of people like RFK, these sort of like Nazgul, like eco-fascist type individuals who it can easily pull people. I don't know what you're doing the face for. You can easily pull people over from these camps that are like these centrist swing voter camps, these Joe Rogan viewer types, and move them over to be more integrated into the Democratic Party.
I don't think swing voters are voting on anti-vax policies. They might have issues relating to like some of the mandates, but swing voters are not eco-fascist anti-vaxxers. Number one. And number two, even if the debates are like a clear win for Biden, that doesn't mean that Biden couldn't get damaged by them, right? Especially if it's people that have nothing to lose on that debate stage, right? Kamala Harris probably didn't have, Kamala Harris didn't have a chance in hell at winning the presidency or making it through that nomination process, but she still took a couple of really good chunks out of Biden. I remember when she made that comment about I rode those buses, Mr. Or nominee vice president. So just because you put people on stage that might not win doesn't mean they couldn't still potentially do damage to Biden. And as much as I like Biden, what
kind of attacks could RFK or Marianne Williamson make that Republicans couldn't also make, especially RFK, the only serious challenge?
But there's a difference because the attacks coming from without are a lot different than attacks coming from within. Why would we go through a damage of our own presidential candidate before he's even gotten to the main stage?
What is the attack? What's the attack RFK can make the Republicans can't?
It's not a matter of him making a unique attack. It's a matter of the attack coming from the Democratic establishment versus it coming from a Republican. That's the difference.
So
I don't know
if Marianne Williamson, RFK and Williamson are not establishment. Marianne Williamson and RFK are not establishment. You said yourself they haven't ever held elected office.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're not part of the Democratic establishment, then they can go and debate on the main stage after they get however much percentage polling they need to in the generals. Then good for them.
Wait, so your argument doesn't work anymore?
No, my argument works fine.
The Democratic
Party, the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, should not be hosting debates in the Democratic Party against our incumbent president. Now, if you want to say, well, hold on, these aren't established Democrats or whatever, okay, that's fine.
The reason why was because of the fact that you thought the reason why you said that is because you thought there would be attacks that would come from people like RFK and Marianne Williamson the Republicans couldn't make because of the fact that you thought those people were Democrat people, members of the Democratic establishment. I'm telling you, they're not. They're not members of the establishment. Sure. What attacks could they possibly make?
Third or fourth time. It's not about the types of attacks they make. Well, I am. You don't understand it. It's not about the types of attack they can make. It's about the Democratic establishment fighting with itself. It's about the Democrats fighting with themselves.
Rather than establishment.
Okay.
You keep saying this. Stop repeating yourself. No, Marianne Williamson is not part of the Democratic Party. She's an independent.
She's not part. She doesn't need to be in Democratic debates.
Hold on. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that single point. I mean, I agree with that single point that Steve is making. That like if they're within the Democratic infrastructure there. Like they're using the Democratic infrastructure to make their case, and so they would be on the Democratic stage, and so they could. I mean, there would be a fight between Democrats, right? That's what people see: Democrats fighting Democrats. I mean, we can establish that, right? Like, who cares?
I totally agree. It would be a fight among people who would look like. Oh, go ahead, that's Phil. You're going to jump on.
Well, no, just if fights between Democrats really hurt the Democratic candidate, we should expect that in the campaigns where there are primaries, that the people do way worse. And you point to, I don't know, one example, like 40 years ago. There's no reason to think this is a general trend. You know, evidence from like 538 is that debates in general, like during the general elections, barely affect people's voting whatsoever because people have really strong partisan loyalties. They're not going to be like, oh, I really like Biden. I like all of his policies. But then this anti-vax eco-fash got up on stage and they called Biden like a crank who's paid out by Big Pharma and now I hate him. No, like very few people are swayed by that.
Okay, number one, I want to respond to something that you said. So I didn't say like since Gerald Ford. So this is according to the University of Virginia Center for Politics. No sitting president has appeared in a primary debate, even ones who facing significant primary challenges. So this even predates Gerald Ford. So this is ever in the history of the DNC that has not happened, at least according to this source. That has not happened. So that's the first thing. The second thing.
You said in the DNC history, you're not talking.
So I'm just reading literally off of like what the source says. A president not participating in a primary debate would be keeping with history. No sitting president has appeared in a primary debate, even ones who ended up facing significant primary challenges. And you can look it up. It's on the Center for Politics. It's by the University of Virginia. So that, at least according to this, so there has never been, at least according to this source. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the idea that this couldn't have a significant impact upon like the debate, that is not true. So a good historical example of this would be Jimmy Carter's run against Ted Kennedy. Jimmy Carter was very unpopular during the 1980 election. He had very low approval ratings. A lot of people criticized his treatment of the hostage situation during that particular period of history. Ted Kennedy was very popular. He still didn't win the nomination. The fact of the matter is that primary challenge, even though an actual debate didn't happen, was so detrimental to Jimmy Carter's campaign that it was a contributing factor to the reason why he lost to Ronald Reagan in that election. A big contributing reason as to why that happened. If we don't want that to happen again in this upcoming election, we owe it to ourselves to support the incumbent, who in this case is Joe Biden.
Look, Carter won like 4 states. It wouldn't have mattered whether he did better or worse. He was such a poor candidate. You cannot point to this example.
Hold on. Can I ask our friends on the other side here? Are you guys saying that you like Biden so much that you want to show the nation how competent he is by putting him up against these cranks? Is that what I'm to understand based on what you've said?
One of the problems here is that the reason there's only cranks running is because nobody serious wants to dare like threaten their career by not being able to get even in a debate, but just announcing that they're against Biden. All that does is signal to the Democratic establishment that you are against the establishment, and so they'll fuck you over. That like
why does the debate being on the debate stage matter so much? Why is that so key?
Because it's the only thing these fucking clowns have. Not you guys, but like Mary Wilson. Yeah.
No,
it's entertainment. It's theater. If I had a steel man, I could
say. It's more than that. No, it's more than that. The debate doesn't exist within a vacuum floating above us all, right? The debate exists within a media ecosystem, right? So it's talking about like the debates. It's preparing for the debates. It's analyzing debates afterwards, like the media doing this. And it gives a lot of attention to whoever is involved, right? And it gives a level of credibility. So, like again, even if you don't think these particular people who've already announced are serious, then people who are serious, let's say like Gavin Newsom, who we know is going to go for the presidency eventually, right? He wouldn't jump in now because why would I, right? Like Biden won't even deign to talk to me, and it makes him look like he's a joke.
Oh, can I clear one thing up really quick? Just really quick. It's not super important, but I want to clear one thing up just because I did some fact checking on myself. Now, Fairy Queen, the Gerald Ford in particular was a sitting president and did do a primary debate in 1976.
Okay.
But that's not, it's not that important to your argument. I just wanted to clear that up.
Prime, are you seriously telling me that Gavin Newsom isn't getting into the race because he won't be able to get on the debate stage with Biden? Are you serious? You can't be serious that you think that's the primary reason someone like Gavin Newsom isn't entering the race.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes.
No, you go. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I think it's one of the very significant reasons why he wouldn't do that. Like if I'm Gavin Newsom and I'm weighing my options, right? Like the DNC has already locked it down, saying we're going to coronate President Biden. What are my incentives? My incentives are to hold my fire, wait until the next cycle, rather than go into a situation where I get no institutional support. Like, in fact, the entire institution apparently is against me from even trying. And the splash that I make will simply be a splash. Like, isn't this a weird thing that someone of Gavin Newsom's stature is doing this?
Okay. I just find it ridiculous. I think the real answer is that Biden has been doing a great job. He's had a flurry of legislative victories. We did really well in the midterms, holding back the Republicans from their red tsunami. And people have to thank Biden for this. He's done a great job, like with the debt ceiling, kicking the can past the elections, taking away the major bargaining chips from the GOP. And so the leading contenders who could challenge him say, we have a huge incumbent advantage here. We're possibly going to have Donald Trump on the ballot. Why in the world would we want to have someone else up there? It makes sense to get our guy across the finish line. When you run for president, you're thinking 2 terms. You're not thinking 4 years and then I'll fight again for it.
Well, he said he was going to go for 1 term previously, right? And he was lying. Okay, so let's put that out there. But that's fine. We'll move past that. We'll move past that. But we understand he explicitly said that. Let's not pretend, right? Let's not memory hold that. That's the thing that happened, and then he lied about it. But okay, we're moving past that. Politicians lie. But like.
It's good that he lied. I'm glad he's running again. Like, but
yeah, like we have a situation where like everyone, whether you want to admit it or not, whether the mainstream media, whether the mainstream media wants to admit it or not, Biden has an age problem. He does, right? I hope everyone here acknowledges that. He has an age problem, and it's actually not that big of a deal to me, but people keep talking about it. People are wondering. People don't have less confidence in this person, and so if he is as amazing as you say he is, right? Then this gives him a chance to show that he's still on top of it, that he's still got it, and puts him in a better position.
Put him in some little short shorts. Get him running on the beach. Why does he need to do
so
this?
we can
to
fall
prove
over
his
again?
mental competence?
Yeah, no, I don't.
I have a question.
Do it
That's
way.
sandbagging.
And that's not what people are. You know, that's not what people are talking about. They're not talking about his physical capabilities. They're talking about his mental capabilities. Let's not lie here.
So, just IRI, you're probably most likely to know this, but if anyone knows this, please let me know. What's Biden's current approval rating?
Isn't it like 35% or something?
Yeah, so
it's I'm looking at
already
RCP,
underwater,
and
right?
it's 40% in terms of favorability. 40%.
Yeah,
now,
but this is a poll.
It fluctuates
all.
between 38.
We all believe those polls, right? 2016, 2020. We really have a lot of faith in
But
polls.
of course, no. There's no way that you. No, come on. There's no way you're a poll denialist, IRA. The polls were accurate. They were predictive. What the polls were saying was, yeah, what the polls were. Yes, they were very good. Yes. The polls weren't saying something like, "Oh, it's 100% chance that Hillary will win." They'll say something like, "It's a majority chance Hillary's going to win," and it's really close. And it was really close. And Hillary didn't win. She won the popular vote, but she lost the overall electoral vote. And I don't think that's like a sign that polls are bad. The polls are pretty accurate. There's not a good reason that you can challenge the methodology of any of these polls.
Okay, here's the thing. We are like 17 months away from the election. Everybody in America blames the president for every problem. So right now, you ask people, are you happy in America? A lot of people are going to say no. You say, who do you blame? They're going to say Biden. You want someone else? Yeah, sure. Who you want? I have no idea. So that's what I think the poll is, with like 60% of people saying, I want somebody else. But they have no idea who they want. You know what? If you're in a relationship, you got a girlfriend, you probably wish you had a hotter girlfriend.
Show them the other options. Show them how ugly all the other girls are, right? They'll love Biden a lot more.
But people don't think like that. People don't think like that.
I think they absolutely do. Let's go ahead, Wick. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. To that point, right? They don't know who else. And I think SDL mentioned this earlier, right? One of the reasons that they don't know who else is out there is because there's no airtime for anyone else or any other positions, right? So would it not behoove, right, the American public, just in case, like, heaven forbid, Biden does become too sick to run, right? For whatever reason becomes too sick to run. It's a possibility that we have to take seriously, right? Without primary debates and having nothing, we have to kind of start from scratch. But if we did have at least some primary debates up there, we have some contenders who have been on the national stage in very recent memory that we could point to. Now, maybe we don't want the RFKs of the world to be up there only, but if we kind of opened it up more to maybe the Gavin Newsoms of the world, would that not be a boon to us?
I mean, in that case, we're going back to the other argument of, like, we need serious contenders. Like, if Biden dropped dead tomorrow, RFK and Marianne Wilson are not, neither of those are going to be our...
But if he dropped dead tomorrow, then it wouldn't be a coronation, and then real contenders would step up. So, like, this is we keep getting to this point where it's often perceived as a coronation. Clinton was perceived as a coronation. First off, we want to avoid that optics. It's good to have Biden perceived as genuinely winning a really, like, if it's really just these cranks, he's going to crush them, right? Go ahead.
The reason why it was hold on, there's such a bad comparison. The reason why Hillary Clinton was considered a coronation is because the Democratic establishment didn't want any challengers to her, or that was perceived as not wanting challengers to her, in a situation where she should have been challenged, because we were going to have a primary, because we needed to vote on our primary candidate, because we didn't have an incumbent. So to compare that coronation with, oh, they just want to coronate Biden by not having somebody challenge his incumbency, that doesn't happen. Historically, that doesn't happen. And something that I think IRI said it earlier, I didn't even consider this. The idea that now, when you're a president, not only do you have to worry about your second term fighting against the opposition party, now you have to worry about being primaried by your own party the entire time, where people are going to be hitting you now from both sides. Well, we're going to have a primary where Biden is going to have to answer why the minimum wage is at $25 an hour, and then he's going to run to the general election where he's got to fight against a president that's trying to eliminate the minimum wage. Like, that's just the optics on that are insane. I think that there is wait,
why?
You have to make a good... Why what?
Why are the optics not bad?
Because having him go up to a primary where he's going to be attacked from the left the entire time on policies that probably aren't even popular with the general American public, that he doesn't even need to speak to them, and then go to the primary where he's got to fight a whole different set of battles. Like, these aren't even going to be arguments that are going to advance his position in the general. The only thing they could possibly do is weaken him.
How does that not just make him look like Go ahead, Jesse. I was going to ask probably the same question.
Okay.
I was gonna ask. Why is it at all not gonna just make him look like a reasonable individual when you have people attacking you from the left and the right? Like, you yourself should know, right? Like, you have anybody should know. You do look more reasonable if you're attacked from both sides. You look like you're a centrist.
But even
I'm not part of an elected party. If I was part of a party, my goal would not be to fight with everybody all the time. My goal would be to build as many bridges in my party as possible. That's why you've got people like AOC. No, not
but the left and the right part of your party. That's the left and the right part of your party.
No. That's not bipartisan. That's just like normal partisanship. You should be friends with your own party. And
Can you be friends with people in the center as well?
Hold on. I don't know why you just keep stacking on like retarded question after retarded question.
What is retarded about these questions?
Nobody's talking about center or left or right. I'm just saying within your own party, there should be an expectation that as president, when you go to run for your second term, you're not going to get primaried by your own party. That's considered in poor taste, even for House and Senate seats.
You were saying it looks bad. It looks bad optics if he's attacked from the left or the right. Like this is now you're moving over to like it looks bad if he's attacked at all at being primary. I'm trying to figure out why does it look bad to be attacked from the left and the right?
Because people are going to have the luxury of hitting you from positions that are completely and totally untenable in the general, and all they're trying to do is make a name for themselves or sign a book deal or maybe do something online. These people aren't even defending seats in their own states. They're not even currently elected representatives. Why would we throw any random fucking person on stage to see if they can go ahead and land the killer blow on Biden when we know they're never going to even win the primary, let alone have a
Why would you land a killer blow from a position that most people think is unpopular and is totally untenable?
Because you could have like another Kamala Harris bus moment where that was a really big hit on Biden during the primary argument that a lot of people were like, ooh, he looks really bad.
There's no good reason to think that had any kind of impact whatsoever on polls.
It happened to not have an impact, but it could have. You don't know what's going to stop it. Why even take the chance?
Why would you cite an example that didn't even matter?
Hold on, no. You guys are using your hindsight shit 2020, but you don't know, right? For instance, like that might be an attack that did nothing, but Chris Christie's attacks on Marco Rubio arguably sank his whole fucking campaign. Yeah, watching Rubio give the same answer 4 times in a row might have been the.
There's a reason you didn't use that example.
That was a small fish sinking a small fish.
No. What I'm saying is you don't know what
Biden's the president.
You don't know what attacks are going to stick and what attacks aren't. So why would you risk them?
By this argument, why do we have primaries at all? Why do we have primaries at all?
You have a primary because your party wants to choose a candidate to send up to fight against the other party for a general election.
Yeah, but why do we ever allow the incumbent to ever be primary? So you talked about House and Senate races. Those are primaried all the time. DSA does this all the time. They win like 1/2 of their races. Like they win, right? So clearly we do this for other positions. Why is the president special?
Because they're not term limited.
Yeah, 1, they're not term limited, and 2, because the president is a special seat that has a ton of fucking power. And also, it is considered a faux pas to primary certain candidates, right? Like people that have a lot of power in the House, for instance.
Yeah, like Joe Crowley, right?
Sure, I'm just saying that the idea of you can laugh all you want, but you provided 0 arguments for why we should have primary challengers to the president for like the first time.
I can rename the arguments if you want. We can recite the arguments we made.
We do have to step back. We do have to step back, right? Because you were saying, and I'm going to be very sure you're saying this. You were saying that primaries, even within lower offices, don't make sense.
I never said that.
They're a problem. So you are fully in support. Then I just want to be clear that you are fully support for primarying a senator or a House seat, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so like we can ignore this faux pas bullshit. That was like a throwaway comment that no one needs to care about.
No,
right?
I'm just saying that as the stakes get higher, when you get to higher levels of leadership, I think it's generally seen in poor taste if you're like trying to primary.
It's in poor taste by the establishment, the people in power. Yes, indeed, they don't like to be challenged. Sure. Of course not. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Like, you want to frame it that way, but no, it's because it's probably
because
it's the power structure of the things that run things in Congress, right?
Yeah. Okay. So the people in charge don't like to be challenged, and that's like when we have a president who is seen as weak, even by members of his party. When we have
I want to be clear. Are you saying that Biden is seen as weak by members of the Democratic Party? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is saying that?
Yeah, who is saying that?
Literally everyone. So hold on. It seems like this is new to people like IRI, but like we have in spaces in terms of like progressive news in a leftist space, right? Within the establishment party, within the establishment donors, right? So I watched a news segment where like a booster guy who talks like establishment donors, he says like every time, every single conversation he has, people bring up Biden's age, right? They're like, I guess, maybe I'll support him, but like, is he really fit? People are wondering about his fitness. It's a thing. You can deny it. You can pretend that he's your president and he's such a great guy and he can do no wrong, but the rest of the country does not agree.
I'm not saying.
Wait, really quick. I want to jump in here.
What I'm asking for. I want to be clear. Stop. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that this is true or not. I don't know.
I wasn't
asking for
is a
name.
I was talking IRI.
I'm asking for a name.
Get wrecked, Wick.
What? Okay, well, do you want just a name of
one
a
name.
person?
One
Okay,
name of
Cenk Uygur.
someone.
Let's try that. Let's try Cenk Uygur. Let's try that. All right, there you go. That's a person. I don't know why you wanted a person. I don't know why you wanted a person, but I gave you a person.
Name 10 people. Name 10
Name
Democrats.
10 people.
But nobody here is going to disagree that Biden has physical and mental potential problems, okay? But you're going to need something more than that threshold to overcome if you're trying to say we should primary our presidential candidate, because the incumbent advantage is way bigger than any perceived mental or physical defects he currently has.
They always run a primary. The president just almost always wins. Like, it's not that they're being primary. They're always being primary. They just win. No one runs against them. It's uncontested.
Biden is fine. Biden could be in a medically induced coma and run the country. Like, what do you guys think? Everyone out there thinks that the president's the puppet master and they have to be functioning. Biden could be he could be unable to talk and still run it. Look at his Twitter account. That's the
shadow president Kamala Harris can handle it.
By smart people,
right? Like,
what?
I don't know. So Eleanor Roosevelt, fan IRI here, is saying that the president can be disabled. It's like not a big deal, right? Like, why would we care about the fitness of our president?
We're
why
electing his policy.
Why do we ask
Eleanor Roosevelt's about example?
Who cares? What do you, I don't understand.
Yeah, who
cares?
Who cares about the mental fitness of the? No. Destiny comes in and tells us how important this office is. The office is important, but you come and say, "Oh yeah, he could be fucking comatose," and it's like not a big deal. I guess the country will run itself. Like, I don't know if this is like a serious argument. I don't know if you're trolling, right? But I'm assuming you're trolling.
We all would rather have a comatose Biden in office than a DeSantis or a Trump. I mean, that's
how about
sure
that?
We would all want that, but that's a different question than what voters want, especially swing voters who are fucking morons.
Listen, on the topic of itself, I would ask Destiny a question really fast. Destiny, you in particular, have you seen what RFK sounds like?
Not much. I've seen scant little about that guy, but he seems like a joke, so I haven't followed him much.
Watch one video and you'll understand why it's really good for Biden's image in terms of public health to be next to RFK.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not about like making him look good. It's setting the expectation now that every future president needs to be ready to defend his presidency against his own party.
It absolutely should be the case.
Stop, really quick. Stop. Why is that a bad precedent to set, Destiny? I'm just.
What I was just going to say, buddy.
Thank you for making
Because once you've had one term as president, and when you're going to be facing a challenger from the opposition, your party should be behind you 100%. You should have a united front. Unless you've done some serious fuck shit, you should have a united front so that you are ready to fight the opposing establishment as much as you can.
No, and this is where I disagree. I think that outside of this particular race. Okay, putting this particular race outside, I think by principle, yes, it is healthier for a party, right, for both parties, if they actually have to be challenged constantly. Like, power should always be challenged, without a doubt. And it would be great if Biden had to answer those questions. I think it's better for the country as a whole, beyond like the current fights of today. It's better for the country as a whole if the people in power are constantly on that edge. Yes, he should answer. Why didn't he follow through with his promises from the left? Go ahead.
Why do you think Bernie just flat out endorsed Biden? And why do you think that is?
I
just want to cross this.
Yeah.
Bernie sucks or what?
So I love. I'll tell you. I think Bernie is amazing in terms of his policies. I love him, right? The best that we have. But in terms of as a politician, I think he's very weak. And I think he loves Biden. He just loves Biden as a person. He's made that very clear during the last campaign that he just likes him as his friend. And he doesn't want to challenge him. I think it's sad, but it is what it is.
I thought the issue was that Bernie said that he was getting emails from, I think the email address was like hclint@yahoo.com, where it was just like a whole bunch of pictures of Seth Richards' dead body. And that's why he decided not to announce
the reason that he's not running.
Did he seriously make an argument that Bernie's not running because Biden's his friend?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that. Well, I think there's multiple.
Bernie's gonna croak, bro. You got many more chances, dude.
And now IRI. Now he remembers that age is a factor. It's amazing, right? Yes, Bernie has multiple reasons why he's not running. Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to go through a campaign again. Maybe it's just because of his age. He is slightly older than President Biden. Yeah, I guess that puts him at a disadvantage. Whatever. Wait. But his mental faculties are
I would have correct one thing. slightly is an exaggeration. It's not. It's 1 year. They can
It's
be
1 year, exactly.
Me and my little sibling are like further apart.
Now age matters, right? But you can literally see a difference in the media.
I'm not saying Bernie's disqualified. You're saying Biden's should be disqualified. I'm not saying Bernie should be disqualified because of his age. You're the one making this argument that his age needs to be tested on stage. I say put the man in some short shorts, let him do some push-ups. I don't give a fuck.
I would say the same thing about Bernie.
No, but this isn't either or. This is both and. Yeah, he can go run on the beach all he wants, and he can also on the debate stage show that he's competent and can respond in real time to opponents who are critiquing him. Probably both from the eco-fash right and also various slightly more sane people from the left.
But IRA, I share your secret motivation of wanting sexy Biden clips.
Well, I just think people are concerned that he's physically not healthy, so show him being physically healthy, you know?
Like standing on a stage, like talking about his ideas, being good with his delivery, showing that it's not dementia, it is literally just a speech impediment, showing the truth for what it is.
The problem is you guys just see clips like our friends on the right that are negative. You see him falling over on stage. Meanwhile, he stood on stage for 2 hours shaking every single Air Force cadet's hand, 921 of them.
And all that anyone will care is about the fall. And people are...
Stop. You gotta let IRI finish. Once IRI's finished, you can respond. IRI, are you done?
No, my whole point is the guy's out there giving speeches. He just had an address from the Oval Office that went perfectly. Not one single flub, no mistake. It was good. He gives speeches all the time, has no problems, but people don't want to pay attention to that. I think that's a little unfair. You guys are victims of clip.
If he can do all that, he can do a debate. Right. The logic of he's very competent, and I've watched all of his speeches, is great for like a super politically informed voter. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people just get like very basic info from the news. They're just seeing clips on Twitter. They're just seeing clips on the local news, all of which is conservative led. Right. But listen,
IRI's argument is that why don't you pay attention to all the planes that didn't crash? Right? That's like people understand. You understand how the media works. You understand how people work. I hope you do. That yes, people look at the disaster. They look at the catastrophe, and all they see, right, is Biden falling over. They see him like stuttering over his words, and I can understand that he might have given a 2-hour speech beforehand in which he didn't stutter a single word. But when he's falling all over himself, when it's clear that he can't follow what's going on completely, that's the clips that are spread. That's how that works.
And yet you guys think people are going to watch an hour debate and somehow come to a different conclusion. Nobody's going to watch the debate, dude. What makes you guys think if they're not going to watch speeches, why would they watch the debate?
People need to watch those TikTok clips. Okay, go ahead.
They'll watch clips.
Stop.
Exactly.
IRI, do you know how many people watched the last presidential debates?
Look, I know it's entertainment, but you're talking Trump versus Biden, yeah.
The
random little debates.
But you don't think that people would tune in? Like, even I think it would be in the millions.
To see Biden debate Marianne Williamson,
and RFK, see Joe Dark Brandon Biden get a dunk on anti-vaxxers. I would love that. I'd watch that.
It is always in the millions. It is always in the millions, and it's beyond that. Like I said previously, right? It's not even just that time, that live event.
Especially on Jeopardy or something.
Especially within our digital media diet, right? It's not just that one time. It's the clips that are created. It's the news analysis that's done. It's the buzz that's generated that gets people talking.
Dude,
it's so much more than that, and you know that.
Okay.
No. Put Biden on Wheel of Jeopardy. You'll get more viewers, and more people think he's smart. Nobody's going to watch those debates.
You are the most basic Biden I've ever met.
To Prime, to
SDL. I think that the real thing that we're not talking about here, and this is really the heart of it, okay? The real thing is progressives don't like Biden. They want to see him stutter, and they're hoping they can get another progressive in it. That's actually what's going on here. Because if this was a fucking progressive president, if it was fucking Bernie Sanders or fucking Elizabeth Warren,
nice try.
Like Hillary Clinton should be able to primary them. Absolutely, my fucking life.
Nice fucking try. No, nice try. Nice try. Like literally, I said before. I already said it when Bernie got brought up. I said Bernie that I would be fine with Bernie being challenged. Right? Like I'm fine with a person.
Yeah, it's easy to say that.
And the principle. Okay, whatever. All right, dude. Yeah. Well, it's easy for you to make it the hypothetical, and for me to fail that hypothetical that you made up.
Enough. I did it. That's why I did it. Yeah.
I will kill, vote, and die for Joe Biden.
Given the fact, right, that you all, the SDL Synth and Prime, you have all said variations of, they just play these clips of the bad incidences that Biden's have. That's how the average voter is seeing him. What is to keep another bad clip from coming up if he goes on this debate stage and say
Because it
he
could be
doesn't win and say he doesn't do well. He has a flub. He has some sort of incident, and that clip gets played over and over and over
I can't wait to respond.
So
because it's somebody else's car crash. It's somebody else's car crash, Wick. We can watch Joe Biden dunk on someone else. People want to see something bad happen. They just don't care who it happens to. If it's the case that we're watching somebody like RFK bomb a point or Marianne Williamson get shit on by Joe Biden, that's absolutely the kind of thing that people are going to want to see.
I'm talking about the reverse. Let me be more clear. Say, for whatever reason, RFK, is blessed by the gods for the day to have a coherent point and suddenly gets a snappy clip against Biden, and that going into the general challengers is then now circulated throughout the media. It just reinforces.
It's so much worse if that kind of stuff happens with. Sorry for interrupting, but it's going to be so much worse. If you think that's the kind of thing that could happen to Biden, it's going to be so much worse with somebody who's actually good at rhetoric, like Donald Trump is up against him.
There's a reason that football teams, when they're ahead, hold the ball and just don't move and don't make a play. I know a sports reference may not be working in this.
I don't even know how that works.
I understand, but when they only have minute left and they're ahead, they don't try to make a play to get score and get even further ahead. They hold the ball and just sit there because they know that the possibility for error is just so great. So I'm just curious.
How far ahead is Biden? How many votes did he win by in the swing states? Do you recall?
Depends on the swing state. I know it was 20,000 from Pennsylvania, 50,000 maybe.
So it was total about 300,000 across swing states. Like, not a lot. If he loses like 0.1% of the margin, he gets into the danger zone really quick. I don't think that we're in this very nice safe spot where Biden is so popular that we can just rest on our laurels. We did real well in the midterms. Part of that's because Democrats are increasingly winning college-educated voters who turn out real well in the midterms, and Republicans are increasingly getting non-college-educated voters who don't turn out well in the midterms. We can't rely on that being true in every presidential election.
It's
that simple.
Dude.
Fair Queen.
We have abortion on the ballot. Plus, we have Donald Trump and all his craziness. The extreme candidates is what lost the Republicans the midterms. That's not going anywhere. Abortion is not going anywhere for years. We got this.
I want to give space to Fairy Queen to get in. I know she's probably the less yelly here, so go ahead, Fairy Queen. I'm going to give you some space. Go ahead.
I want to be very, very clear. So, Cynthia, you mentioned, like, for instance, in the 1976 presidential election involving Gerald Ford. I'm really curious to see what source you're looking. I haven't been talking because I've been trying to fact check myself. I'm on Wikipedia right now. I'm looking at Gerald Ford, the presidency. The only televised presidential debate that I can find underneath 1976 was between Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. Now, there was a challenger from Ronald Reagan during that time, but I haven't been able to find any specific debate that happened between him, hosted by the RNC in 1976. So if that exists, I could be wrong, but I accept that I might be wrong, but that's at least what I'm seeing here.
No, got it for you.
No, for sure. So if I'm wrong, please fact check me. But I think like the heart of the issue that Wick is getting to, what I would like to get to, what is unique about this particular election? What makes it different than when Obama was the incumbent, when Clinton was the incumbent, when any other Democratic president was the incumbent? Why this particular presidential debate? What makes this? Because this hasn't happened for so many other incumbencies when they have been president. Why now? Why in 2004 when we had Donald as a potential presidential candidate and Joe Biden, as moderate and as boring and as sleepy as you want to call him, is the only person who has the proven track record of beating him? Why? Sure. Why throw that away?
I'll give a two-part answer. First, I think all three of us would have supported primaries, like, period. It seems like all of us think that primaries are part of a genuinely participatory democracy where there's real engagement and real debate of ideas. It's hard to get that without primaries, without debates as much as possible. So I think, yeah, we would have supported it in the past. But two, the Democratic Party is a coalition. It's been a coalition for a long time, and that coalition is more diverse and more divided than it's been in a long time. So if you want to have that sort of participatory democracy where ideas are shared, where people are actually debate the positions, you need to have a real primary process.
Yeah, we had one.
Like, yeah, we did.
Ago. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and those debates were really helpful for changing policy discourse in this country. $15 minimum wage is now mainstream policy. 42 of 50 Democrats in the Senate voted for it because of those debates.
Yeah, 42 Dems voted when they knew it would fail. You have no idea how much support you'd have for a 15-hour minimum wage if it was up for a legitimate vote. Number one. Number two, well, then the next set of primaries, you can also push that discourse. But pushing the discourse is not worth jeopardizing our incumbent advantage.
It's not just he's still the president. He still flies on a goddamn fucking plane that can survive a nuke. Okay, he's gonna do okay. He's got a great incumbent advantage.
If you lose the incumbency, then you don't have the incumbent advantage.
Can I ask real quick? STL, what is the incumbent advantage? You keep bringing it up and mentioning it. Can you explain it to maybe the less educated in my audience?
I mean, I'm sure IRI and Destiny can explain it as well, but broadly, candidates who are incumbents do something like 3 to 5 points better, just in general, sort of regardless of whatever the partisan conditions are, regardless of how pro-Republican, pro-Democrat, or whatever. Candidates who are currently in office just do way better than a generic candidate does. So it's good to hold office if you want to win future elections.
Okay. Do you disagree with that, or any additions to that definition, IRI or Destiny or Ferry?
No, I think it's easier to run for a job when you're already doing the job and proving to people that you can do it competently. But I don't understand this idea that Biden only ran for one term. I looked it up on Google because I never heard this, and I saw that he was like hinting at it, but never like said it. You guys are acting like you looked into the camera.
Wait, real quick, because I remember this very specifically because it was something that I was very critical on. Is when he was running during the primary process, I remember distinctly him saying that he was probably only going to be there for one term. I think it was in response to people questioning his age. It was really fucking stupid. I didn't think at the time he was going to follow it, but it was a really dumb statement to make. But he did make that.
But he made no commitment. Like, I will only.
He didn't make a formal commitment, but he did say it. Yeah.
Okay, so fine. But here's the thing. Everybody knows that when you run for president, you're going to get your ass kicked in the first midterms. That's what history shows. So it's always a 2-term thing. Like, nobody spends $2 billion to run for president so they can do 4 years and peace out.
True.
It's just silly to think that anyone would even do that. And that's the biggest argument DeSantis has right now against Trump. Why would you want to get this guy in? I can get 8 years. That guy can get only 4. It's a huge advantage. But I'm still laughing at my friend Prime and others who are such Biden stans that they want to show how competent Biden is by putting him on that stage to demolish other people. I'm not buying it for a second. You guys are so full of shit, man.
No, because IRI.
Go ahead.
You are deep in this like a Biden DNC thing. Like, I think you are literally just like downloading your points like from the DNC website. That's literally all I've heard of you this entire time. But if you actually engaging, but IRI, if you were actually engaging in this conversation, right, without like jerking yourself off to Biden's image right this moment, you would know that we've already said that it's literally the principle of the matter, that it's better for a democracy when there's more debate, when there's more discussion, with this challenging of power, that we're talking about not just this particular race, right, but putting an infrastructure in place where we do this, right? Even if it's the case that this is not within the American tradition, it should be within the American tradition, and it makes us all stronger.
But Prime, why is now the occasion to introduce that tradition right now when we're potentially facing against Donald Trump?
When will it ever be? When will power ever like to be challenged? You tell me. What is the date?
Republicans do it.
What is the date? Right? What's the year that power will enjoy being challenged? Fair.
Right.
Here's the thing. If Bernie was president, I'm with Destiny.
I was talking
Neither of you would
give
be
an answer.
Fairy Queen asked me a question. I responded. Fairy Queen, please answer. When will power enjoy being challenged?
I don't know if it'll ever enjoy being challenged, but what I do know is that people will never enjoy being hungry. Will never enjoy potentially having Russia gaining more and more territory. Will never enjoy having
to do with anything
COVID-19 because we don't have a competent president in office. And the fact of the matter is, if you allow like his incumbency to be challenged, for the DNC to allow an incumbent president to be challenged in a primary for the first time in history, that has never happened, at least according to what I've seen so far, and to do so not only to somebody who's an incumbent, but for somebody who has served as vice president for 8 years, shows that even the DNC believes that the Biden is inadequate.
He is inadequate. And hold on, no, regardless of whether the DNC,
even if that's true, it's stupid for the DNC to try to promote that to the wide amount of.
And this is like the same ostrich head sand BS that allowed that made the DNC believe that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. This is the same, like, not dealing with the issue, understand that yes, you can say that he's great, he's fantastic, you can deploy Biden bots like IRI all you want, but people still are going to feel the way they feel. They absolutely do.
Wait, hold on. Wait, but Hillary had debates with Bernie. She crushed him.
She crushed him so poorly that he got like 45% of the final vote.
Yeah,
she did really bad. She should have done way better. He started polling at like 2%.
Yeah, he might have started polling at like 2%, but she obliterated him. Did he have 45% of that? What?
Obliterated
Like in the
his way to
lowest of
45%.
states?
In
all the
final-
states in all the states where it mattered, where the support was going to matter,
in
and
the
for
final-
the general,
First of all, Destiny, it literally doesn't matter like how. Again, this only proves our point. If Hillary Clinton was so great and it wasn't a big challenge anyway, so then it shouldn't matter. So why shouldn't we do it any which way, right? That's fine. But the thing that you guys are afraid of is that Biden is weak, right? That like the world will see what we'll get a preview of what's going to happen in the fall.
Not at all. This is a guy who told the president of the United States to shut up, man, on live television when he debated Donald Trump. Biden
no matter who jumps in, he'll do fine.
Just let IRI finish. Go ahead.
Look, these guys, it doesn't matter what they say because the people that actually know what's going on out there, like people that would be real contenders, have all stepped back to sit on the bench and warm it up until 2028. So I don't know why you guys think you know so much. Why do people like Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, why are these people not running? You think they're just so subservient to the party? Like, yes, I'll do whatever the party says? No, they know their moment is now, but they know that the best advantage for the Democrats is to get behind the old man and get him across the finish line.
Because they're waiting for 2028. They don't want to be seen as a traitor to the party. Did you see what happened? Like when Sinema left the party, she's now getting like 5% support among Democrats. They don't want to be seen as crossing Biden.
No.
But if it's a real primary the DNC really supports, that people are really engaged in, that we participate in as part of our democracy, we like make this, hey, this is part of the legitimacy of our process, then yeah, they'll participate. People would gladly turn out for that. Newsom isn't doing that because he wants to run in 28. It's that simple.
I think what they saw was Biden had a flurry of legislative victories with the bills that passed, and they saw him accomplishing things here. Nobody can deny that. The infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, all these bills were tremendous. And then they were still cautious, but the midterms came and the Republicans got their ass kicked. We even increased our seats in the Senate. That never happens. And they said, okay, this guy's got something, so we're going to back him.
But you keep talking about what the voters want. 80% of Democratic primary voters want a debate, right?
I've never heard this in my life. It feels so astroturfed. I never once in my life did I think, man, if only we had more debates, our democracy would be stronger. I don't know where this comes from. Like, I've never heard anyone make this argument until recent with Marianne, because she wants to get on TV, as Destiny said, to sell more books. These people do not have a real chance. They're not going to push Biden in any directions. They're not Bernie Sanders, who's going to somehow push him more progressive. They're clowns.
Ooh.
Sure. The current crop is currently just 3 candidates. It's Marianne Williamson.
And by the way, you should not want these people up there if you're progressive, because Marianne Williamson will set back Medicare for all worse than not having a debate on it.
Well, and that's why it should be a real primary, so real progressives can primary, right? Like, this is the argument that keeps coming over. If we don't have a real primary, you're only going to get cranks declaring they're running against.
Do you have can you give me a name of someone you would consider a real contender?
From the progressive side, I mean, Newsom might actually run. What's his face? The Colorado governor. He's sort of a neoliberal, but he's a progressive neoliberal, and he could run on like weed, which he's done a great job on. He would probably run on that.
No, you would have like Ro Khanna or something if you were going to have a serious progressive candidate.
Go on. Answer that question, then I have a question for IRI side. Okay.
No,
IRI side.
I think Ro Khanna. I was just going to agree. I think Ro Khanna would be an interesting choice for the progressives.
To Destiny, IRI, and Fairy Queen. The 1980 challenge, right, of Jimmy Carter was mentioned. Given that Jimmy Carter was, in hindsight, pretty fucked, right? Like, he wasn't going to win. If the DNC had given more support to the challenger, I believe at the time was Ted Kennedy, perhaps Reagan would not have won in the general election. Perhaps with a stronger candidate, the Democrats would have had a better chance. So why not, right? If Biden is polling underwater, right now, and that continues, assuming it does continue, right? Why wouldn't we want to at least give a better shot, right, to the Democrats as a whole, right? Like, why wouldn't we want to at least have an option, another warrior on standby? Like, why? I just don't see the harm. And I mean, I get it. Whereas there could be a gaffe or something, but I don't get the harm.
Because one of the biggest advantages that the Democrat Party has right now is that it appears to be unified and it appears to be relatively sane in comparison to the Republican Party. Right now, the Republican Party has two major divides in the party: those that want to vote for DeSantis and those that want to vote for Donald Trump. That divide is ripping the party apart. In order for the Democrats to continue to maintain power, not only in the presidency, but also in the House and also in the Senate, we need to have a united front. We need to look like the moderate, sane party that is able to get things done, that is able to supply what we need to our constituents. And if we entertain primary debates from people like RFK, from people like Marianne Williamson, from people who might run, but we have no idea if they're going to run, then it makes us look like we, A, don't believe in the people who we've elected and who represent us, and B, that everything that the Republican Party is smearing the Democratic Party right now is true, right? We need to have a united front. And I appreciate you mentioning the 1980 election. One of the reasons why that was catastrophic, because you're right, Jimmy Carter wasn't polling very well. It's very possible that, and he probably would not have won in the 1980 election. However,
Definitely, even without the challenge, there was no chance. Zero.
But the losses were bigger than merely him losing the presidency in 1980. Up until about 1980, and this is according to a book called Camelot's End by John Ward, the Democrats have been the dominant party since FDR and the New Deal for much of the 20th century. But once the civil rights movement kicked off, they began to quickly lose the South, which is why Jimmy Carter's history as a Southerner, his Southern roots, helped him maintain power, particularly Democratic power within the South. Unfortunately, when so much bruising and so much division happened between the party, when Kennedy was constantly fighting with Jimmy Carter on the national stage, it showed that the party was divided. And a lot of and many of those parties that had historically voted blue because of Jimmy Carter's influences switched to red, and they instead chose to vote for Ronald Reagan. We can't just worry about the presidency. We have to worry about the House of Representatives. We have to worry about the Senate. And if we show that we are divided and we don't have a united front, we will lose much, much more than merely the presidency.
We've heard the united front point several times, right? But you gave two supporting arguments there, an A argument and a B argument. I just want to know, why would we believe either of those? You gave two supporting arguments. You labeled one A, one B. Why would we believe either of the supporting arguments you gave? I mean, you can start with the B argument if you want, which is that you think it'll be the case that we have this sort of standard set of us not believing in our candidate. And it seems like we actually would believe more in our candidate if we're willing to have the candidate's ideas challenged. So what's the supporting argument for B first?
Okay, well, first of all, because the DNC has never hosted an incumbent debate in the primaries. So for them to do that uniquely for this particular presidency shows that they don't believe in this president.
Why would it show that they don't believe in the president if they do it now?
Because they've never done that for an incumbent before in the past.
Why does this connect? Why does we haven't done this before mean that if we do it now, it shows we don't trust our president?
Because
how does it not? It's literally like, imagine if you're the CEO and you run a company, and after like 2 years, somebody's like, you're going to make a decision. Like, wait, hold on. Let's just vote to see if we all agree with this decision. You're undermining the person rather than saying like, we trust you to run your second term well, hold on, let's see if there are any challengers first. Of course it's undermining. You're saying by default, like, we should test this out just in case you're not fit for the job.
No, we're not saying test it out just in case. We're saying, look at how strong our president is. Even facing challenges, you're not going to be able to get rid of him. Like, here's our president facing a challenge. There's nobody to get rid of him.
Nobody thinks like that. That's like
you can say nobody thinks like that, right? But you haven't given an argument for why people think the way that you're saying. You just said, like, what if you gave an analogy? You gave an analogy, but there's no reason to believe that in the case of, like, if a CEO comes to the board meeting, slaps his dick on the table and says, I dare you to try to vote me out, that he doesn't look stronger and instead he looks weaker.
No, nobody in the history of like voting for the confidence of like a CEO or taking like referendums for parties or whatever, nobody does this to say, look how strong I am. You do this when you want to challenge leadership.
Other people will suggest this if they want to challenge leadership. People like Marianne Williamson and people like RFK are already challenging the leadership. These are the outsiders challenging the leadership. If the leader slaps his dick on the table and says, I dare you to challenge me, he looks stronger, not weaker. When people like RFK, RFK and Marianne Williamson are going onto places like Fox News and saying the president won't host a primary debate, it looks really, really, really bad for us. It makes us look weak. It makes us look afraid.
At all. They just look hungry for attention.
You have to give an action.
You said you could justify this, and you were asked to justify this for Quinn. Go ahead.
So I can give you, I mean, it's from fiction, but the quote still stands from Joffrey Baratheon and his grandfather Tywin. What does he say? Any man that must say I am the king is no true king, right?
True.
That is true in the CEO. It's true in the boardroom. It's true for kings. It's true for presidents.
I'm a surgeon.
Fairy Queen just won the debate. Like, it's over.
You think that you're not worthy. It's a sign that people don't take you seriously. And the same is true like in our everyday life. Like, the guy that comes into the room who's super alpha and talks about how strong he is, how he's going to dominate, everyone knows that person is the weakest person in the room the second he walks in. Real strength doesn't even tell you. There's another quote from Margaret Thatcher.
That's the point. Well, no, Fairy Queen, that's the entire point. He could show it, sort of just like forcing no competition from the opposition.
He is showing it by
to quote another piece of fiction, with great power comes great responsibility. He has the responsibility to be
pretenders to the throne.
Let me try and speak to this. Like, let's take a vote of no confidence. I'm so confident in my leadership. I want to take a vote of no confidence to prove it. Like, that's just like nobody thinks.
If there's a small group of individuals who are saying that you're not fit for leadership, and you say, okay, let's take a vote. Let's see how many people actually think that. It seems like it's a small minority. You don't look weaker.
No, because now I understand what you're thinking, but this is like a movie plot. In reality, now you've blown up and legitimized. You've legitimized the fuck out of that talking point. It's like, oh well, hold on. Now we're having a vote of no confidence. Now people are going to be thinking about this a lot more. Like, why would you do that? There's literally no point in doing that, right? Arguably, this is where Brexit came from. Was Cameron put up a referendum they didn't think anybody was actually going to fucking vote on, and now the country has fucking destroyed itself. Like, why would you even begin to do this? Right?
It's already public discourse. There's not going to be a debate happening. That's the reason we're all having a conversation on it.
Give it a try.
Go ahead.
Well, and so one thing I want to speak to is that a constant Republican talking point this election is going to be that the last one was rigged. Trump, if he wins, is going to say that the election was stolen from him. One of the ways of arguing for Biden's Democratic legitimacy is for him to do a lot of this, like directly engaging in this primary process, show that he's an extremely popular, extremely healthy candidate who can recenter things on policy, right? The more clips you get out there.
Did Trump have debates when he was an incumbent? No. So how could he even possibly use his argument?
Because he made this argument about Bernie, right? He said that the primaries are rigged. He's just going to say that the DNC is putting in this like corpse. They're walking through the corpse because they know they have no other real candidate. And if we show, hey, one, this isn't a corpse. Two, he's got some great policy points. Like, for example, Trump wants to abolish the minimum wage. Biden wants probably 11 or something. But if we show that, hey, he's a real candidate who actually fucking matters, who like has points that actually would be good for the country, that delegitimizes the point that this is an undemocratic election.
For Obama, we didn't ask that from Clinton, and we didn't ask that from a long line of other presidential candidates.
This is a really weak argument because the Democratic Party,
from this specific president,
the Democratic Party didn't used to be internally democratic until the 60s anyway. Like, the things you're talking about are all modern institutions. We create institutions for our purposes.
That's exactly right. And your primaries like haven't happened throughout the history of the country. Like that's even itself a newer thing, any which way. But whatever, right? I don't know what this argument is. Well, we haven't done it before, so I guess we can't do it now. Welcome to the Republican Party. Thank you for being a conservative. It hadn't happened. There's no tradition of this happening, so I don't want it to happen now because it scares me. No, who cares, right? Like, we're talking about making a fundamental shift. At least I'm talking about that. Maybe I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm talking about making a fundamental shift, a principle shift that actually strengthens our party. This thing about like a united front, that is an illusion. That is an establishment illusion that the party is all united here, right? We're all behind our guy. But obviously that we aren't. We have disaffected voters, right? And you talk to those disaffected voters who would most likely vote Democrat. They say, I don't have anyone in this party that's speaking to me, right? And you talk to marginal voters who are like on the fence about these things. They're like, well, like, why am I voting for Biden? A guy that I don't believe in. IRI thinks that everyone who's ever voted for a Democrat still loves Biden, but the rest of us understand that this president is weak. So this will be a perfect time to start this tradition.
First of all, Biden does support $15 minimum wage, SDO. He did it for federal workers. And okay, so why did he give it to federal workers and contractors? He also included in Build Back Better, but the Senate
to support it or not, right? That's the difference.
The Senate, he had it in Build Back Better, the original $1.9 trillion bill, but the Senate parliamentarians said he couldn't include it. Bernie tried to fight that, couldn't win the support of his colleagues because they all hate him.
No, that's great, and that's the type of things that he could highlight with the free airtime of a debate, right?
need the free airtime. He's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, well then why does he do anything ever?
The whole world will listen.
Yeah. Why does he ever have a media event? He's the president of the United States.
What's the point of State of the Union? And they
nobody ever listens to his press junkets except all of you hyper online, like all of us. I should be clear. All of us hyper online, hyper.
How many people do you think watch SDL? How many people do you think watch the State of the Union like nationally?
The State of the Union's a bit different. It's like the speech.
Yes, it's the speech. But again, as the incumbent,
he said press junkets.
He said, right? I understand press junkets, but I'm illustrating the point that press junkets are the only platform that a sitting incumbent president has. If the president were to make, right, like Clinton did before he launched some attacks into Iraq, the bombings and stuff, he would call a press conference. He had a thing where he asked the studios to give him the airtime, and they did because he was the president. If he wanted to go this route, he absolutely could, and they would do it for other reasons too.
Biden wouldn't be saying, "Hey, I'm doing a war." Right? He'd be saying, "Hey, I love $15 minimum wage." That's
he would
different.
Obviously,
you can't ask
do it
CNN to give you the mic for talking about your policies. Like, he could host a town hall or something, but you know what else works is these debates. He can do a town hall and these debates.
Do you think the CNN town hall went well for Trump?
I didn't watch it. I don't care.
I think it did for his particular purposes. It
so
did.
why can't
Destiny,
Trump?
Can I clear up one thing before we move on?
I wanted to.
I want to clear up one thing before we move on. I think this might help to keep the conversation from looping, because I think I figured out the reason why we keep looping on one of these points. So, Fairy Queen, you made this argument in regards to it hasn't been the precedent in the past, and now it would change. Do you understand, like, that argument only works to support your point if it's the case your point is correct, and if it's the case that your conclusion is false, it doesn't support your conclusion? Because I think that's the reason we keep looping. It's like you kind of like...
That was a little confusing for me. Can you restate that?
Yeah, sure. What I'm saying is your argument only supports your conclusion if your conclusion's already correct. If your conclusion's false, then it doesn't support your conclusion. It's a circular argument. Like it's a kind of like method of like. Have you heard of the phrase "begging the question" before?
Yes, I've heard the phrase "begging the question."
The argument begs the question, right? If it's the case that your conclusion isn't true, then it's not supporting evidence for your conclusion anymore.
Let me restate this in a non-autistic way. What he's saying is that arguing for the case that we continue tradition is only good if the tradition itself is true. So we shouldn't make an argument for the continuation of the tradition. We should make an argument for the tradition itself. It would be similar in the 1700s or 1800s to be like, oh yeah, like we should keep slavery because we've had slavery. He's arguing that's not a good answer. He wants something to justify the institution of slavery. Or in this case, which is really the same thing, the institution of not debating our incumbent.
It is the same thing.
I have a few. I want to take this kind of this pause really quick to earn some money, read some super chats out, right? And there's some questions that might drive the discussion a little bit forward. $10 from Cryborn to say what other undemocratic practices should we accept as Democrats. $10 from Cormac to say this is a unique election season because Biden was clearly running for 4 years to beat Trump. Nobody voted for Biden thinking they'd have him for 8 years. $20 from No Step on Snake to say, if God forbid Biden were to seriously decline or pass away before the election, should Kamala Harris be similarly coronated, or should she have to fight for it? $2 from Madarius to say, thanks for reading my comment, Wick. $5 from Cormac to say, who needs super delegates when you have DNC hacks like IRI? Sorry, IRI. $10 from Royo Flammel to say, it could be that Joe Biden performs weakly on stage and that compromises his image, but why would we wager another 4 years of good policy being passed because he isn't sharp on stage? It's a dumb idea. $2 from Greeny Odias to say, Lars for president, RVB was a good YouTube show. And $5 from Art by Pep to say, Prime, is that principle worth the cost to the country? If we split the vote enough for the GOP to win, feels like a Pyrrhic victory.
I will address this. Thank you so much. Right, and giving this spotlight back to me where it belongs. So I think that this there was always this argument, right? In fact, RRI made this argument previously. He talked about like how we're the same party, right? And people are going to vote for us because the Republicans are so bad. Like, this is what the establishment bots don't seem to understand. That I don't seem to get. This idea of this incoming threat, right? This ever-present of the Republicans doesn't always work, right? People aren't always convinced of that. Like, we have disaffected voters.
Do you think it works now during this debate, or during this season? Do you think that the Trump or DeSantis? Do you not think that there are serious threats?
I think there's Trump fatigue. I think what we saw during Trump's candidacy.
Again, do you think that Trump and DeSantis are serious threats to democracy in America?
I do, Yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay.
But hold on. No, don't throw that out. I do think that. I personally do. But like that's not how like the average voter like follows politics. A lot of them don't like consider this like a make or break. But when you tell them everything's always emergency, right? And like the only thing that you can rest on, because you have nothing to provide, the only thing that you can rest on is that the other side is worse. Yeah, that's a really fucking weak argument. So what I wanted to do previously, right? If Destiny could stop sucking his fucking face, can you engage with us and tell us like about these disaffected voters? What is the argument that we're making to them? People who like would vote, like who are gettable, right, to the polls, who are Democratic leading in their affect, but who don't come out because no one speaks to them. You don't even give them a chance to have someone that might excite them. And then, like even if Biden wins, right? So like Gavin Newsom, let's say he's the exciting candidate. If Biden beats Gavin Newsom, what will happen? He'll take in some of his arguments, some of his points, like with Bernie, and then maybe pull in some of his voters. How do we get those people without that kind of discussion? Please.
I mean, what do you mean? Just look at his legislative record. You've got the American Rescue Act. You've got the Infrastructure Investment Plan. You've got the Inflation Reduction Act. Like, I mean, he managed to bring down. People said that inflation was going to last on gas for fucking years, and it lasted for months. People said that we were going to be in World War III. We're not. People said that. I mean, I don't know. What do we know? Point? Like, I know that Biden's approval record is low right now, but I feel like he's still. Look at the CHIPS Act. Like, what?
But that's manifestly the problem. I look. You can. Biden does have points to make, right? Like as to why he should be the president. He absolutely does. But despite all that, despite everything you just said, still his approval rating is where it's at. Still, people don't feel that way.
I don't know what you want me to say. Does he need to dress up like in a Rey Mysterio WWE mask and start like?
I think we should just like make his point. I think he should just make his point. I think he should be able to make that point within.
I think his record speaks for itself, and I think when we go
clearly doesn't.
I think when we go into the general, I think that we'll get. I think right now people have a lot of anxiety for a lot of different reasons, but when we start hashing out records in the general, I think we'll get a much clearer picture of where the American people stand. Like that's why I don't take polling, for instance, on like 15 an hour minimum wage. I'm not going to take it seriously unless it's a debate that's being actively had over something. Like people will have opinions about things that aren't being tested, but once they see those things on stage fighting with each other, the opinions shift like pretty substantially. I think that Bloomberg was a perfect example. What?
Why? If you want to argue about things being tested and things being hashed out, that's an argument for having primary debates.
There's nobody serious in the Democratic. Those debates aren't helping.
We've already done this. This is the catch-22.
It's just a loop. The other side just loops over and over again.
All right, go ahead.
Let me add something. I just want to say, why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? It worked in 2020 to beat Trump, and it's going to be Biden versus Trump or Trump light DeSantis. Why would you change the strategy? It worked already. What is your argument? Let's try something different and see if it works. Biden got the most presidents ever, or most votes ever for president.
I mean, sure. I think there's
trust the plan.
You go first, SCL. Oh, okay.
Trust the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think a fundamental difference between the people on my side and the people on that side is that, like, you guys are, like, clearly only looking at this in a partisan matter, and I don't blame you for that, right? Like, I get the idea of winning, right? Fair enough. I'm personally, and I can't speak for everyone else here, but I'm personally looking at it in a bigger, lowercase d Democratic fashion, right? I'm looking at it as a way to strengthen parties by like having this infighting, which is necessary. If you just pretend that we have a united front, which we clearly do not, then sorry.
It's okay. I just want to try to break the loop a little bit with another question. Maybe we can kind of move on to something else. We might. Well, honestly, this is a black hole. We'll probably get back to it and probably start living again, but that's fine. So given that Biden's approval ratings are what they are, even considering his legislative accomplishments, why is that the case? Why do you think that his numbers are? Why is he polling so low right now, despite all these pointing to all these legislative accomplishments? Please, all right, go ahead. And then
it's because inflation is still high. He's still cleaning up the mess that Trump created. There's still a lot of problems out there, and most Americans are not creative enough to understand how the House, the Senate, Congress works. And so they're going to say, I got problems. It's the president's fault. So a lot of people are blaming Biden. And I understand that. I accept that. I don't actually argue it. I kind of joke a little about, well, polls, who cares? But I honestly think most people are just kind of unhappy, but things are getting better. Gas prices have come down. It hasn't led to World War III, as Destiny pointed out. Inflation is coming down. Trump is looking crazier and crazier every day with these indictments, and Biden's looking better and better. So I think as the election gets closer, as Biden starts spending money on his reelection campaign, he hasn't even had one event for his reelection campaign. He's going to have his first one next week, I believe, in Pennsylvania. He hasn't even started running for reelection. As he puts his money into that and starts telling people why they should give him a second chance, I think those numbers start to go up.
Can I jump in really fast and ask Ira a question? Yeah, I want to ask you one super quick question. Yair, you said Biden is looking better and better. Is there any kind of data you could use to support that?
Biden's looking better and better compared to
I see he's getting a higher and higher disapproval rating.
Well, again, the numbers right now are because people's feelings are down in the dumps over inflation and such.
Point, the trend line is downward, as I understand it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're giving an explanation as to why it's the case that Biden's looking worse and worse. I agree there are explanations why. It's not the case that he's like a bad president. But he's not looking better and better. He's looking worse and worse.
I don't know. I'd have to see what you're looking at. But I feel like most people out there were thinking that Biden did pretty damn well on the big debt ceiling fight, for example, thinking, boy, this guy really took it to the Republicans, and McCarthy's looking like shit. So I don't know what stats you're looking at. You're looking
any
at
any aggregate polling data on Biden's approval.
Well, of course. Like I said, it's 17 months from the election. Go ahead, SDO.
Just pull up 538. You see the exact same thing. That I wouldn't even say that approval is trending down, but disapproval is trending up for him. So it's not clear, and I don't. This sucks.
Hold on, that's not true. I'm pretty sure disapproval is, at least in the Democratic Party, disapproval is trending down. Now,
sure, but we're talking about the general, right? This whole overall electability.
Well, in the general, kind of, but Biden is not winning. None of our candidates are ever winning Republican votes, right? The Republicans are lockstep, or have been trending in a certain direction for a long time in terms of their relentless partisanship, right? Disapproval among Republicans for Biden is past 90%. So
not looking for, we're not looking for just among Republicans. We want to look at the aggregate. Because that's going to be what shows us who's going to win in the general.
That's great. But for Democrats, I'm pretty sure for the past several months, the approval for Biden has been like either streamlined or a flatline or generally rising.
That's great, but that's not what anybody's talking about.
Stop, because if you're looking at this now, I want to know, what about amongst moderates, independents, centrists, etc.? Those who aren't related to either of the major parties. Do we know?
I don't know where. I haven't seen data on what moderates are polling at right now. But I think that one of the big things that we need to keep in mind is, I think my guess, I would venture something a little different. I already said I think that Americans, the presidential approval rating, in my opinion, is like a snapshot of where every American feels like they're at in their life right now. And I think
hold on. I'm gonna stop you because you lied about something, or maybe you're mistaken. You might not have lied. But no, Joe Biden's approval rating has gone down even among Democrats since May of 2021. It's gone down steadily.
Since May of 2021, my understanding is from December of 2022, the approval has generally risen a little bit. I'm looking at Reuters polling data.
Yeah, if you want to drop me some long-term polls that you're using, right? I can understand what you're talking about, but it's just the case that since Biden took office, he is less approved among Democrats now than he was, and among more moderate people, like people who lean Democrats, it's now barely trending above water among people who lean Dem.
This is why I said recently and not since his election, right?
What do you take recently to be? How far ago can we go before it stops being recent?
The weekly data that I'm looking at right now is December 20th of 2022, and then monthly starting January of 2023. So over
drop the link in the side chat and I'll check it out.
Sure thing, go for it. But anyway, so I think that there is a general anxiety among Americans, around a lot of things, especially concerning wages and jobs, and especially concerning the affordability of the cities that they live in. And these are two things that largely the president of the United States has zero control over. I think that as we get to the debates and Biden can make the case for it, well, look at all the stimulus I did, look at all the unemployment insurance we gave out, look at the child tax credit expansions, like these are the ways that I helped you. I think Americans will feel a little bit differently about it. But right now, I think that the presidential approval rating is more or less just a snapshot of how Americans are feeling about the country, and it's not too great right now.
Well, let me speak to that for a minute. So we're talking about Biden being able to make his case. One of the arguments that our side has consistently tried to make is that, hey, these are huge events that are going to get press coverage. They're a great way for Biden to reorient the conversation away from, hey, the president makes all of the bad things in my life happen, to, hey, here are these concrete policies that I want to enact that Republicans want to gut, right? That's a great way for that to happen. Just speaking on the polling for a minute, on the head-to-head polling, moving away from all the approval polling, in head-to-head polling, Trump is currently ahead by 2 points. DeSantis is currently ahead by 2 points. We are not comfortably ahead, just waiting for Biden to lap the other candidates. We are in a position where he needs to make his case. It's that simple.
Well,
on the primary. He doesn't need to make the case against Republicans arguing with other Democrats.
It's an easy way, like, if nothing else, if you didn't want to take any argument from this, right? Nothing about democratic legitimacy, nothing about participatory democracy, whatever. If the only argument is, hey, this is great ability for him to get free clout, and if you want, you could just say something like, hey, let's change the democratic debate rules so that only electeds can get in. Okay, then you don't get these crazies coming in, and you don't have to worry about them. You're only getting people who have serious attempts to try and win the presidency sometime in the future. You may even be setting up future presidential candidates by giving them this massive stage.
To rehash an old point, number one, he is the president of the United States. He doesn't need more clout. He has plenty of clout. He has plenty.
But apparently his message isn't getting out. That's y'all's argument.
Number two,
the argument, but...
Number two, the second thing is, I'm hearing a lot about like reunifying the party, making the party go into an exciting new venture. I will just tell you, so I work as a teacher. A lot of the programs that we have, a lot of the funding that we have in the school that I work in, it depends on Democrats being able to pass legislation in our local district, right? I am not in favor of abandoning the pragmatically possible, real legislation that can impact my students, that can impact my community in pursuit of a perfect vision for what the party might be. And that is a danger that I think that it is.
That's a great straw man you just set up. That's
you gotta let her finish, Sheldon. You gotta let her finish. Go ahead, Fair Queen. You have the floor.
Number three, I noticed we're talking a lot about polling data. I will not comment on the polling data, though I tend to agree with Destiny when he mentions that it's generally a snapshot about how Americans are feeling at a particular moment in time. But what I will say is one of the ways that I tried to frame whether or not I thought Biden might have a chance at winning the election is based off of a book that's called by Alan Lichtman. He's a historian, and it's called The Keys to the White House. So there are 13 different markers that he's used from I think every incumbent versus not a challenger, but for every incumbent presidential election since I think about 1984. And there are 13 different keys. And in order for him to lose the incumbent election, you have to have at least 6 of those keys have to be false. According to Lichtman and according to what I was able to rustle up last minute, it seems as though right now only 4 of those keys might possibly be false. And the theory, what it's based off of, according to Lichtman, is that although many voters historically, although they can be swayed by polling data, they can be swayed by charisma, oftentimes they really care more about whether or not presidential candidates have carried through on their promises while they were in the White House. And historically speaking, if they don't do that when they are in office, then typically those are the conditions that are necessary for them to lose. It's the reason why Donald Trump lost in the 2016 election. Alan Lichtman, he successfully predicted that. And he successfully, again, I think 1984, but I could be wrong about the dates since then. So I do not think that the legislative wins and successes that Biden has up until this point are a moot point. In fact, I think it is the most important thing that we can discuss tonight.
Before you guys, I guess as Prime is going to respond to that, but before you do that, I want to ask Destiny a quick yes or no question. By the same standards you're using for saying Joe Biden is looking better and better, is it the case that Donald Trump is not looking worse and worse?
I don't think Donald Trump is looking anything right now because he's not as much in Americans' eyes. But once he gets wheeled out, like in the Republican debates, then we'll see how he looks to the Republicans.
So your answer to the question is Donald Trump is not looking worse and worse?
Well, on that point, though,
to be super clear,
wasn't there a big something happened recently, a big deal of his indictment and the indictment, I guess, being released? I haven't looked into it personally myself, but do we not think that's going to really change the race on the Republican side? I know this is a side.
No, Republicans are literal, actual, knuckle-dragging fucking retards. So no indictment or anything like that is going to make any difference whatsoever how they feel. The only way we'll tell is how, I guess, moderates or undecideds feel, or the less extreme people feel once, the debates start. But I don't think any of the news right now, because Trump is just not, front and center in front of everybody's face, except for when this indictment news comes out. I don't think people are going to develop strong feelings about it until, the actual races start.
Damn. And I call conservatives ignorant, and I get so much grief. And then Destiny says that, and he gets away with it.
Well, only in specific times, okay? I choose my moments carefully. But when it comes to Trump, Republicans legitimately are unhinged at the brain. Everything shuts down.
Well, they're flooded with misinformation. Here's the thing, too. Like, being president, you got to make some tough choices. And so Biden has to work with Republicans. It pisses off a lot of people. They don't understand how it works. You got to keep the economy alive. So when you hear the complaints about Biden, it's always like, he hasn't done anything about abortion. He hasn't done anything about voting rights. It's like people have no idea how that stuff works. And so they just get mad at Biden. But being president, you got to put the big boy pants on. You can make some tough decisions. And Biden, like I said, has just begun to ask for re-election, hasn't even had one event yet. So give it time and forget debates, man. Put a couple polished commercials together with some light flares and Biden looking cool and eagles flying and jets and I'm President Biden and I'm here to kick ass or whatever. And he's going to win, man. He doesn't need to get on stage with two morons like Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. to debate whether vaccines cause autism. I'm sick of this crap.
I want to IRI has a point. Do we think that debates matter at all in the modern American electorate?
Actually, I think they do. People have been saying here that they don't, and that they don't move polls. They do move polls. We saw that, for instance, in the Republican debate in 2016, I think, right? That people's performances in those different debates like shot them up and down. And then that's literally how Trump got to the presidency, is by like having great performance, by embarrassing all the rest of his opponents and then making it there himself. So like I think they clearly do have a level of effect, especially if the audience members, right, being the party, like feels that like it's salient to them, that like what that they have someone speaking to them, like the RNC wanted to pretend that its establishment base or its establishment views were unified, right? That they were representing everyone, but clearly they weren't. Trump managed to tap into that, and then he came out strong. And so, like, that's what I want. I want us to be able to test these ideas and see what really is popular.
Dude, Marianne Williamson and RFK are going to set you back in your progressive ideas,
sure.
bro.
Well,
it's like Jimmy Dore with it's like Jimmy Dore with his March for Medicare for All. It's a nightmare. Trust me. You want to open that door, you're going to regret it the second it happens.
Yeah, it's great. Once again, and I've stated this clearly. I'm trying to create, at least me personally, I'm trying to create the infrastructure to normalize this, to have it so that we have all kinds of candidates show up. So Marianne Williamson, I think I disagree with everyone here. I don't think she's correct. But Marianne Williamson wouldn't be the only one showing up there. If we actually welcome challengers, then we would have more challengers.
Prime, what do you like about Marianne Williamson? What makes you want to vote for her?
I like her over. Oh, I didn't say that like I wouldn't necessarily vote for Marianne Williamson, right? I'm saying that I don't think that she's a crank. That's all I say.
What do you admire about her?
I like her positions on Medicare. I like her positions on. I mean, I don't know. Like I just have the general appreciation for her.
She's cool. Do you like the cut of her jib? Right.
I do.
Actually, she wants Medicare for all and a healing crystal in every home. What more can you want?
Like, what more can you want? Like, I don't know.
I want to hear from the rest of the people, though. And even from Destiny and Fairy Queen, because IRI has made the statement like that Destiny, I'm sorry, not Destiny doesn't matter, but debates don't matter, right? Do debates still matter, STL? What about you, Sims? Do debates still matter?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. They obviously do, in part for normalizing policy. I would argue they don't have big effects on the way people ultimately vote. People ultimately vote on where they align ideologically and who persuaded them. When you look at between elections, which way voters swing, it's not really about getting the base out. It's about persuasion. Trump persuaded voters because he came off as centrist. People don't realize this, but he was polled as the centrist candidate. So that's part of how you win, is persuading voters. Giving your candidate more airtime is one way to persuade people towards your side. But in terms of like their long-term impact, I think debates help set the stage for what policies are considered. Bernie mainstreamed Medicare for all, mainstreamed the Green New Deal, mainstreamed $15 minimum wage, in part through his debate performances. And I think generally that's probably a good thing for society, insofar as debates are able to some degree to choose between policies that are good and bad, between policies that are popular and not. It's probably a pro-democracy, like slightly better policy in the long run to have more debates. Yeah.
What about you, Destiny? Debates. Good, bad?
I mean, nah. I think that like debates are fun, but I don't know if they move the needle much on things. I like debates. I'm a debater; it's my job. I like the idea of like general debates or whatever, but you have to be aware of like the political calculus while it's happening. I mean, like what we talked about, all those wonderful things, Bernie, the Green New Deal, 15 an hour, single payer healthcare, all of those ideas are dead now. Nobody's taking them seriously in society. They're dead on arrival in the Senate.
Like Florida. Florida doesn't take the $15 minimum wage seriously, right?
What I mean, states might be doing it, but do you think that the state of Florida was persuaded by Bernie Sanders? Or do you think it more has to do with like
part of the movement?
In every single major city in Florida that has increased because every single person around the country is migrating to Florida to get away from like COVID policies and other shit that they found on here, right? That's probably more why wages are trending a bit up. But also, I don't even know if all of Florida has 15-hour minimum wage. Isn't it just like the city limits of Miami or whatever? I don't think it's the entire state, is it?
That vote was in 2016.
Okay, sure. It might be. I mean, different states have higher minimum wages, but I don't think Bernie Sanders gets the sole credit for normalizing that conversation.
Sole credit. He's held like part of the point of all this is we're talking about like you can call it the Overton window, whatever policies that can rise up to national. There's a reason we know what UBI is, okay, and it's because of Andrew fucking Yang. He put it on everyone's lips, everyone's mind. People are aware of this shit in a way they weren't, and now all over the country, cities are doing UBI experiments in a way they weren't before. That shit can help move the needle. It provides the experimentation necessary for democracies to choose between policies. So, like, yeah. It does matter.
It can, but at the end of the day, like the ACA came from an elected leader negotiating with Congress to get shit done. Like the American Recovery Plan, the expansion of the child tax credit came from an elected leader like negotiating with Congress to like get shit done. Like there's a time and a place for activism. I just don't think it belongs on like the presidential stage where it could potentially hurt like a future election where policies actually matter and not just where we're trying to get more people to think about them.
But it can always hurt a future election. Every primary election, the House, the Senate, the president, whatever, every primary is a chance to bring up dirt on the candidate, right? AOC, I'm sure, did not like benefit the image of Joe Crowley, but I think Congress is probably better for having her in it. Like,
yeah, but like look at how AOC has changed her leadership style since getting in, right? Like initially she was the rambunctious shit on everybody from the left, do it consistently and constantly and over and over and over again. And now she doesn't. She's grown as like a statesman, and now she has a better relationship with everybody in Congress, and she realizes it's probably a more effective way to get her agenda passed than just constantly attacking her own party, which seems to be what progressives are obsessed with, which is another whole point of this like doing more primary debates or whatever. It's going to be a way to attack Joe Biden. That's the only reason they want to do it.
There's some truth to this.
Just real quick.
Oh, go ahead, SCL.
Well, go ahead, Wick. Is what
oh,
you
sorry,
mean.
sorry.
Go ahead, Wick. Is what you
apologies,
mean. Okay.
Apologies.
No, but I keep hearing, well, from Destiny's side of things, I keep hearing, well, we don't want to have a debate because it's a chance for these candidates to have good moments to attack Biden. Why do they need a debate to attack Biden? Like, what about the debate format makes those attacks more effective? Then they couldn't just buy airtime or come at like on Twitter and
because they're not going to get airtime because these are no names. The only way they can do it is by leeching off of Biden's clout. Essentially, it's literally like a YouTube tier argument, right? Like if somebody wants to do a hit piece on me, like nobody's going to hear about it. But if I start watching it and give airtime to it, then of course people are going to hear about it. It's the same thing with Biden. Like, oh, like I want to share a stage with the president of the United States while I shit on him. Well, everybody that knows the president is not going to know like your opinions on him, even if otherwise they wouldn't have given a fuck or known anything about it.
It's just a proxy war. Sorry. It's just a proxy war between the progressives and the establishment. Look, before this, it was why did they move the schedule? They moved it to South Carolina so Biden would have an advantage to go first. They just gave it to him. It's just one. It just keep moving. You know, they just keep moving around. It's just one way to fight. Let me guess, Prime. You were out there advocating for. You were mad that they moved it to South Carolina.
No, hold on. I wanted to address that really quickly, right? It's a tangent, but I'll address that. I have been, and I've done this many times on my show. I've advocated for rearranging the schedule. However, not specifically for South Carolina. Now, it has nothing to do with Biden. It's because South Carolina is a fucking Republican state. Why would we?
No,
like
it's in the South. Care about? We just won Georgia. Why not?
Hold on. What we should be concentrating on are swing states, right? Swing states, especially ones that lean blue. Those should be the ones that top the schedule. Right, so I like that Biden rearranged things. I don't like the fact that South Carolina was number one.
2020, Prime.
Huh? Sorry.
Would you have considered Georgia a swing state in 2020?
No.
I think it's good that we maybe did some stuff there, perhaps.
Actually, no. I think that I think it's fine for us to put resources into Georgia. But I don't think that. I think it's looks. People calling it a swing state, I think it's a bit overblown. Look, but it's fine. We can put resources there. My only point is that, like, for this specific thing, I think you can rearrange the schedule. I think that would actually be a really good thing for the party. But anyway, I just wanted to say about to Destiny. Of course, he's wrong. 65% of people support a $15 minimum wage increase, including 90% of Democrats and 41% of Republicans. This is the University of Maryland study that was done, and this was published April 21st, 2023. So, but there's this idea, this false idea that we are united, right? That if whatever Biden's doing must be what the establishment likes, certainly, but it also must be for the best interest of the public, and everyone's behind him. That is not the case. That he did. I feel that he did not fight for $15 minimum wage. That he let the barest of legislative obstacles stop him. Where he doesn't seem to do that for anything else that he actually does support. But it's a side tangent.
Also, as another side tangent, Florida voted on that minimum wage increase in 2020, and it won't go into effect until 2026.
It's an amendment. Look, you call me a bot. You're the one who's doing all the progressive talking points, bitching about South Carolina, the DNC moving the map. You're bitching now about the debates. What's it going to be next? You call me a bot.
Hold on. You didn't hear anything, right?
I heard your argument, but you didn't care about any of this.
Your ears are stuffed with Biden semen, because I literally said that I support the change, right? I just don't want South Carolina to be on top. That's it, right? The change itself. I'm glad that Biden did that, and we should be pushing this, and we should break the hold that Iowa and New Hampshire have. Okay. Absolutely.
I want to give Fairy Queen a chance to answer the debate question. Then we go back to some other questions. So Fairy Queen, does debate move the needle? Are you pro, anti-debate, neutral to debate? What do you think?
I truly don't have enough research on hand to say how much debate impacts presidential elections. The closest example I can think of is John F. Kennedy versus President Nixon. If I recall correctly from that story, and again, someone can check me on it, I do think that him being on a televised presidential election, I do think that did have an impact on his performance, if I recall correctly. Again, somebody can check me on it, but that's my understanding of it. But generally speaking, as I stated before, from what I've seen, based off of the book that I mentioned, The Keys to the White House, the biggest reason why incumbents win and why they maintain power, it's because they deliver on their promises that they make when they gain office. It has less to do with polling data. It has less to do with popularity. It has less to do with slamming dunk points on the stage, and much more to do with their consistent record as candidates, as presidents when they're in office.
You know what's funny is this Supreme Court ruling that happened this week of throwing out Alabama's maps. That was a huge injection boost for democracy. A lot of people will be happy with Biden for that, because people have no clue how it all works. They'll be like, oh, Biden actually delivered something for democracy and voting rights like he promised. Watch. Guaranteed.
Okay.
They'll be happier with him.
I want to use this lull to read a few more super chats, and then we'll get back into it for the last third of this. $2 from AG Silver. He's wicking out. Hell yeah, I am. Jesse Irwin, $2 Canadian. Sorry. Can everyone on the panel say Obama? You don't have to do that. Stupid. Ryan B for $10. For Prime, in a hypothetical where we primary Biden, he loses, and then the new candidate loses to DeSantis. Do you think GOP will primary him in 4 years, or will likely hold the advantage? $10 from Kyborn. Don't more people need to give you money for this entertaining panel? Yes, they do. $5 from Alma Dalma, trying to fracture the DM party against an increasingly proto-fascist GOP in the name of democracy is wild. $20 from Lex Friedman. Great job hosting these debates, Wick. It's a great format. I learn a lot when I tune in. Thank you. $10 from Josh R. to say, can you ask Synth why he brought up Ford when the Fairy Queen literally said the DNC and Ford was a Republican? Also, does he know how Ford became president? Because he surely wasn't elected. $10 from Feder Methodist.
Ford lost. Yeah, I'll answer the question. Ford lost.
Well, I got Ford two lost. More, and then you can answer the question.
Oh my God!
$10 from Feder Methodist. Can we see a show of hands why everyone on the screen, of everyone on the screen, including WikiDoodle, that is a registered Dem, and a show of hands of those who do not identify as Dem but want to weigh in on what the party does? And $2 from Ranger and Rogue. IRI. What is Biden is still fixing from Trump? Okay. But I am a registered Democrat. I don't know who else is. You can say if you want.
Me too.
Same.
I am.
I think everyone here is
Biden's strongest soldier.
Yeah, right. We found him.
Can I answer the dumb question?
You can answer the question.
Yeah, thank you. So the reason is because the claim was no incumbent president has ever participated in primary debates. I completely agree that it's not the case that Ford is a Democrat. I didn't say Ford was. But hopefully that answers your question, comment, as to why we bring up Ford.
The comment was that Ford was not he wasn't strictly. He was the only reason he was the incumbent was because of Nixon.
Yes, he was the incumbent. Yes,
Yeah,
that was the reason why he was the incumbent. I agree, he was the incumbent for a reason. Yeah, I don't.
But
the commenter, I don't know why the commenter's even asking. Why did I mention an incumbent president?
Asking, he's informing.
Well, because it's kind of it would be like saying that like you inherit your hair color from your parents, and you're like, no, that's not true. And it's like, what do you mean? Of course it's true. It's like, no. What about step parents? It's like, okay.
No, I think the point of the step parents is social fiction. Wait, the step parents is social fiction is totally different. So in the case of an elected leader, it's not the case that you're an incumbent just because you're elected. When you're a step parent, we're saying you're a parent in some kind of like fictional sense, so you're used to the word. It's like totally different, totally disanalogous.
No, that's exactly when people are talking about incumbency. They're talking about a person that was elected by their party.
If I said no person on the planet has a different hair color than their parents, wouldn't it be fine to bring up one counterexample?
I think that this is actually an empirical question about whether appointed incumbents have an advantage. I don't know what the answer is, but it's very clearly one way or the other. So I don't.
I would assume that an appointed incumbent would still have the advantage, but yeah, it's difficult to have the empirics offhand.
Yeah, I think there.
Well, how many times has this happened in U.S. history, right?
For presidents, it's rare, but for like House and Senate, it's not.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, and I'd imagine
how much of an incumbency advantage is there for like House and Senate seats compared to the presidency, right? I don't know what the numbers are on that.
I would imagine there's an advantage. There's less of an advantage because they haven't built like the campaign infrastructure. Like if you're just like appointed at that point, like you don't have that machine behind you ready to go. So I would imagine it would hurt you. But anyway, I wanted to answer that question that someone asked me for money for Rick. Good work on that one. Do I think that if we primaried Biden and Biden lost and then the challenger lost, would the Republicans do so to their candidate next time around? No, I actually don't think that at all. But that's because we don't have it normalized. This should be the case. I'm arguing for a world that should be true. That would be better if we had that world where both parties or all parties, including third parties, would do this.
Would you still argue for a short-term loss if you knew doing this would give Trump or DeSantis the presidency? Would you still advocate for it if you knew?
On principle, yes.
Okay.
Jesus.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Destiny. I don't know. I get it. You got literally no principles. No, look at him, right? Literally no principles.
I don't know what happened to the United States of America after 4 more years of Trump. So it's just funny that's like the sacrifice.
This is such a poor argument. No, I'm sorry. No, this
I didn't agree with Prime, but that's wild.
Yeah, how is it wild? Trump literally tried to destroy the country in like 7 different fucking ways. What do you mean? That's wild.
After 4 years of Trump being, go ahead, Prime. You're going to say probably the same thing.
Well, no. Okay, well, just the point that I think there's such a weak argument for us to make as a party. I want Democrats to win, right? Like I think it's better when Democrats win. I think less people suffer in the world when Democrats win. But the argument that we present to our voters is just that we're less terrible than the other side. That's it. That's what we're presenting. That's the biggest example. Like, hey, we aren't as bad, and people don't care. They don't see the threat, which the threat is real. I admit it is. Or it just doesn't matter to them. It's not salient.
I want to ask the rest of the
Can I say one more thing really fast? Because I thought Prime was going to say the same thing I was going to do.
Really
super quick, and then you can jump back in. But in terms of like what people are saying like before the first Trump presidency, back in like 2016ish, people are saying if Trump takes office, it'll be the end of America. I think Trump is really detrimental, but the idea that he's going to snap the Thanos glove and like remove America from existence is ridiculous. It's way over the top.
He literally tried to do that like 3 different times.
What are you talking?
He tried to snap with Pence to overturn the election.
Was he ever successful?
Georgia.
Was he ever successful? Was he ever successful?
But he tried.
Because we have a really, really robust democracy in the U.S.
It's
like gonna wither away because of one nutcase.
But it's like the equivalent of saying like my ex is gonna kill me.
It's never been tested that much. What? We had a civil war.
You gotta let Destiny finish his point.
The Civil War was the destruction of the United States.
It was not a successful destruction. That was the most tested the U.S. has ever been. It's something close to what Trump was able to do, and it wasn't able to destroy the U.S. The U.S. still exists afterwards.
The Civil War was a test, and we failed. There was a secession of states.
We failed. We are one country again. We succeeded. We managed to move back from the. We managed to move back from the Hans cause.
I'm on Steven's side here. I don't understand. Like we can understand the threat that Trump has posed, and like he literally tried to end democracy. Like the fact that he didn't.
And he's not capable of it.
What? Hon. Okay, so you don't believe in try again until you succeed, right? Like that's not a thing. That a person that he can't like undermine democracy to the point that it is able to fall, right? Institutions are only as strong as the people that are in them, and Trump was putting in people who would do as he pleases.
Saying
right?
that there is some possible chance, and if he does it enough times, eventually he might succeed. Like if he was able to have like 100 like Trump terms or something, I totally agree it's possible. But it's not the case that we can say with it that it's up in the air as to whether or not it would happen with 4 more years.
I'm not saying it's definite, like 100% by the end of another.
What's your percentage?
Trump, that would be the case, right? I'm just saying that.
What's your percentage? 4 more years. What's your percentage?
I would be pulling it out of my ass from deep outside.
Random
inside
guess.
my bowels.
I'd say 20%.
20%.
Okay.
You don't. Jesus, that's insane. You think there's like a 1 in 5 chance of.
And
1 in 5
chance
if there was.
It came out of his ass because it doesn't fucking matter.
It's
right?
an insane
obviously,
number.
no way we can have any give you a number of any value here. I'm just saying
you
that
can have a rough estimate. Like it's not crazy.
I can say that certainly the chances are higher than if it was Biden, right?
I agree.
Certainly, okay, or a generic candidate, a generic Republican candidate. Okay.
I agree. It's not the case that we can say it's up in the air or there's like a 1 in 5 chance of it happening.
You asked us to give you a percentage.
I know. I'm asking you so I know what I'm disagreeing with. I'm not asking you for the sake of like being like, what's the specific empirical?
I am anti-math on this panel. Okay.
Show me with base theorem.
Move past this point. We can all recognize that whether or not Trump can succeed, he'd at least attempt it, right? He'd at least try.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. I think we can all recognize that even the attempt, right, even normalizing the attempt is probably not good for the long-term health. Even though it might not set aside our democracy in the next 4 years, it would plant the seeds that might, right, lead to problems down the road.
I mean, I think we've already moved past plenty of the seats. He's been impeached more than any other president. He's been indicted more than any other president. He's going to be convicted more than any other president. Like, I mean, I don't know how much else you need. Like, he hasn't done it yet. Like, he's probably called for his vice president to flip the vote more.
Usually when somebody has like a theory that somebody coming into office is going to destroy the U.S. and then the prediction is proven wrong, they lower their credence in the view. Usually they lower their credence in the view. They don't raise the credence in the view.
Okay.
No,
that wasn't hard to understand. Why are you confused?
Because
why thought that was even remotely confusing?
Because what you just said didn't make any sense. That'd be like saying...
Which word did you not understand?
I'm sorry. Let me know when I can finish without you interjecting with some absolutely retarded shit.
what was retarded
Stop. Both of you stop. Both of you stop. Destiny will finish his point, and then, Synth, then you can respond.
Okay, so Synth's argument is if somebody fails to do something, how can you up the probability that they're going to be successful doing it next time? If I say, I think my ex is going to come over here and murder me, and somebody's like, wow, what's the chance of that? I don't know, maybe 1 in 5? If he comes over to my house, takes 7 shots, and misses every time, and then he's like, I'm going to come back and kill you next time, my percentage of dying is going to be from 20% to 50%. I'm going to increase it because he actually fucking tried it. The idea that just because somebody tries and fails means you're all of a sudden going to lower your Bayesian estimation of the chance of being successful next time doesn't make any sense.
Now I understand why Destiny's just confused about what I just said. So I'm not saying that it's the case that there's no other evidence that can come about. I'm saying that if it's the case that all else equal, which you know, is this person failed to do the destruction of democracy that we had every reason to believe beforehand, it's the case that we have more reason to believe they failed they did a second time. It's not the case there's no other evidence, like them shooting at you or Trump had like beheaded a bunch of Supreme Court judges, that we'd have no other reason to raise the probability. It's just the fact of the matter that Trump failed lowers the probability.
We didn't know he was going to... No, I don't care how far left you are. Nobody who was being honest knew that Trump was going to try to destroy democracy. Nobody knew that until he tried it. Nobody knew that shit like Georgia would happen. Nobody knew that shit like with Pence would happen. Nobody knew that going into it. So the fact that he even tried it is amazing and astounding. Nobody knew he'd be...
Nobody knew it, but they had reason to believe it. They had reason they thought that would happen. There are plenty of people who had reason to believe that Trump would come in and to try to destroy democracy. They're not psychics. It's not like the progressives are psychics or something. They had reason to believe that Trump was going to be anti-democratic. He came in and he was anti-democratic and he was not successful at removing democracy or destroying America.
You can say that they had reason to believe it, but if you want to play the Bayesian game, your priors on that are very, 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 very low because your reason to believe it is going to be an ahistoric event that like no president, at least in the last 200 years of U.S. history, has ever tried. So you might have believed he was going to do it, but the chances of doing it were probably like 1 or 2%.
Do you think your priors are just defined by like what everyone else is doing? You don't think there's anything else that updates priors?
That's literally what a prior is.
No, it isn't. What are you talking about? What?
Okay.
No, you're dead wrong. Your priors can be updated not just by virtue of the fact that you have something like the general statistical trend, but you can also have updates from the rhetoric of the person.
Probabilities, I think, enough, right, to understand, right? Bayesian probability. If you have that on your bingo card for tonight, check that off. Right, it's a rare win, but you got it tonight. I want to talk about a little bit as we're kind of closing out here. Which would you rather face in the general election, Trump or DeSantis, and why?
Easy, Trump, 100%, dude.
Why?
This guy drags the whole ticket down. He's nuts. He's got tons of baggage. Probably going to be convicted, just appealing. Probably headed to prison. I think he's a nightmare for the GOP, and that's why if it's close between DeSantis and Trump in the primary, I'm phone banking for Trump. We got to get him across the finish line. That's how good he is.
You would actually go, like, would you donate to Trump's campaign to get him over that line?
I don't know if I would donate. I would knock doors and I would make phone calls because that's not like permanent, but I would definitely want Trump across the finish line because it's a layup for Biden. Trust me, people will come out. All those pink pussy hat wearing people, #resistance, they're all coming out. But for DeSantis, they're like, I don't know. Plus, DeSantis is young, so the age question becomes a bigger thing for Biden if it's versus DeSantis.
Farrakhan, what do you think? Trump or Biden? What's your poison?
I would echo everything that IRI said, with the addendum being that, as I stated before previously, what the Democratic Party has going for it right now is that it looks like distinctly more sane and more moderate than the Republican Party right now. There's a quote, like, again, I keep going back to Jimmy Carter's primary challenger against Lieutenant Kennedy. But one of the quotes, like, that he was, I don't remember if he said it or if it was someone else. It was something to the effect of, we need moral leadership in this country. One of the things that Jimmy Carter, a similarity between Jimmy Carter and between Biden, is the fact that both of them cared not just about promoting progressive policies, not just about like trying to recoup the nation, but battling for the soul of the nation, right? They stand, and like the wholesome like image of Joe Biden is as distinct and different from the catastrophe of Donald Trump as can possibly be. And so I therefore would want Donald Trump to be the nominee for the Republican Party, if for no other reason than it just highlights the distinct difference between the Democrats and between the values of the Republican Party currently as it stands, and why the United States needs to vote Democrat in the upcoming election.
Destiny, Trump or Biden? Or I'm sorry, Trump or DeSantis? What's your
Trump 100%. We've already beat him once. We could beat him again, and he's got so much more baggage next time. And I think he runs into like the standard populist problem of, listen, I'm going to get elected and change everything. He got elected. He changed nothing. His record is horrible. He's got more baggage than he did before. He's too dumb to even make a Twitter account again. Like, he's a hopeless loser. I don't think he can win a second time if he lost the first time.
Ramkai, what do you think?
I don't have anything satisfactory to say here. I'm gonna pretend to be Wick. I think both sides have really good points. I think that Trump, everything you guys said about Trump is certainly true. I think DeSantis is a piss poor candidate. I think that this will be you'll see this in the coming months. I think that he is a Jeb 2.0. Jeb Bush, exclamation point 2.0. I don't think he has any of the personality. I don't think that he can galvanize his base in the way that Trump can. But I could see myself being wrong on both ends here. So, sorry.
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I think Meatball Ron is an incredibly uncharismatic candidate. But the main concern to me would be that he has less baggage than Trump, and if he gets into office, he's probably more competent at governing. So I think it's sort of like a maybe slightly. I don't actually know who's less electable, because one is like a wet rag and the other is like a populist who's at least kind of fun, but is also fucking insane and has a billion pieces of baggage against him. So I don't know which is worse. But when he gets in power, it's really hard to do worse than Trump. Trump had something like less than half of the positions in his administration staffed for most of his time there. DeSantis, if he gets in, would do some theocratic nonsense. He would be way worse for democracy in America, I think.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what Eskel just said there. If somebody hopped on this panel and was like, there's a 1 in 5 chance of DeSantis destroying democracy, I don't think I'd have a good counter argument to that. I think it's just the case that, yeah, probably. Wait, hold on. Destiny, do you disagree?
Yeah, I don't think.
Then you should want DeSantis to win.
I don't want this. No. I want.
That wasn't the question.
The question was, would you rather run against Trump or DeSantis?
I'm aware. You'd rather run it. Yeah, you'd rather run against Trump, despite the fact that he's a much higher chance of risking democracy.
Yeah, but I think he'll lose.
You don't think DeSantis would lose with the fact that he's like doing worse than Trump in his own party's primaries? They both lose.
They haven't started primarying each other yet, like for real. They haven't gotten into like an actual back and forth where every Republican.
What are your odds that DeSantis will win against Trump in the primaries?
I have no fucking idea. That party is
obviously
lost,
obviously he's more likely to lose. Okay, 50-50, then you should say that both are just as likely to win because they're both just as politically viable.
No, politically viable in winning. You're so. Why are you laughing?
You're so confused.
Nothing you're saying. No, I'm not confused. There's nothing
You're so
saying makes any
deeply
sense.
confused.
You're like, oh well, if they've got a 50-50 chance of winning their primary, that means they've got an equal chance of winning the general election.
No, that's not what I'm just saying. I'm saying they're equally politically viable within their own party. They're both very successful candidates. It's actually, it's just genuinely insane that you think that DeSantis is a 50-50 shot, despite the fact that every single futures market disagrees with you.
Okay, then, I don't know what you want me to argue against.
Look, if there's a 50-50 chance, if there's a 50-50 chance to get the greatest investment opportunity of all time, take all of your money that you have and bet it on DeSantis, because that's a great expected value.
What do the futures markets right now say? What are the odds?
Saying that it's a much higher chance to Trump than DeSantis by a factor of about 3.
By a factor of 3? Okay, throw $500 on there and I'll fucking match it, and then we can see in like 2 months after some more indictments come out where those markets are. Count my word right now if you're listening to me. If you put money on
not 2 months until the election, not 2 months when it's done. When it's done. You're so mad.
You can buy and sell your position.
You're so upset. You can, but you just said there's a 50-50 chance of winning. Not a 50-50 chance of priors changing.
Elections before, and I've made 5 figures doing it. I did it with fucking Mo for the
last. You're not. Well, the argument we're having is it the case they're going to change over time? Of course they're going to change over time. The argument we're having is it the case they're going to win or not?
Stop or you will be stopped. Okay? Don't care about the futures market. I'm going to be real with you. Do not care. Do not give a single shit about what the futures market says might or might not. My question was, what do you think? Right? Not what the futures market thinks. Okay.
I think Trump.
That said, we have had a robust discussion. We're not going to end it. We're going to end the closed portion because I know some people have to go, right? I know people have other things to do, but we are going to open it up. But before we do that, I want to give closing statements to people. And if you want to stay, you'd be welcome to stay. And we're just going to open it up to open callers to call in and yell at us why we're wrong or why we're right. You can say if you like. If not, I understand. And we're going to start with Fairy Queen. Close this out.
Okay. I would remind everyone that no one expected Joe Biden to win the presidency in the 2020 election. Everyone thought that he was boring, he was cheesy, he spoke in cliches, progressive rolled their eyes when he said things like restore the soul of America. He didn't have Obama's charisma. He wasn't cool and woke. He wasn't nerd chic. He wasn't an Andrew Yang. And yet, the fact of the matter, being consistent, being stable, having a proven track record of over 50 years of experience in governance is the reason why he was chosen to lead this country. If we want to protect this country from Donald Trump regaining going back into office, we have a responsibility to protect the incumbency. And so I would encourage, and I would remind everyone that there is a reason why Marianne Williamson and RFK are being invited daily on Fox News of all places to talk about why the DNC should host primary debates. It's because it's against the Democratic Party's interests. And so that's just the last thing that I'd like to say. And finally, I would like to do a plug for Wick. I'm a Wicker. I love his community. I love hanging out in his Discord. I love debating people in his private VC. You should definitely come and join me and join everybody else to hang out there. It's really, really fun. Also, since it's the closing, you can find me at the Pink Pill Podcast. My goal is to create anti-red pill content. My hope is to start creating anti-red pill video essays. And I'd really need the support. I have 2 debate panels that I've done up there so far. Check them out and let me know what you think. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Give her a follow, gang. If you want to throw your link in my YouTube chat, feel free. Give her a sub and a like and all that. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. IRI.
All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun. It's great to see Synth and SDL. Nice to see you. The Dark Brandon King. I will forever appreciate your contribution. And of course, Prime, my old friend. It's all love. Great to see you. I love fighting with you. Listen, I think it's noble that you guys are advocating for more democracy. And I think there's something to be said there about debates in general and getting more people involved. It's an entertaining way to talk politics, and it does get a lot of eyes. I just think the incumbent advantage right now is too big to toss. The stakes are too high. And if you really want to see democracy move forward, then I would say getting Joe Biden across the finish line and a bunch of Dems down ballot is the way to go, because I think there's great stuff coming in the second term. Public option for Medicare. It would be a huge step towards Medicare for all. Affordable child care, expanding public education with universal pre-K, paid family leave. I think these are all things on the agenda for Joe Biden his second term. So And for me, the evidence couldn't be clearer by the candidates that are actually trying to primary him. Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., who, as Ferry pointed out, are nonstop on Fox News and Newsmax. So, gee, I wonder who's helping fuel their campaigns. These people are chaos agents. They're just there to cause problems for Joe Biden and Democrats. And that's why Joe Biden's laughing them off. And honestly, I think they do more damage to progressive policies, which I support, by the way, believe it or not. Even though I'm a Biden bot, I still support progressive policies. I voted for Bernie in 2016 and 2020, but I'm a realist and I see opportunity on the table and we have to take it. So that's why I support Biden. That being said, I go by I'm really important. I stream on YouTube, on Twitch. I talk electoral politics. I'd love to have you come hang out if you guys out there want to come stop by. Thank you, Wick, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence. An IRI panel is always a banger. Really appreciate you. Thank you again. Synth, please.
Sure. So, no, I really enjoyed the conversation. There were a couple of arguments that we went through. A lot of those got repeated a few times, but some of those were like the accusations of us being secret Biden haters. And I want to make sure that everyone in the audience knows that it's really important that we do get out there and vote for Biden when it comes time. He's an excellent president, in my opinion. I know that may be Prime, and I'm not sure about SDL if they agree with that, but I certainly do. And we mentioned the approval polls point a couple of times. Trump is looking worse and worse, and Biden is looking better and better. I think that I would get this view if the communities that I was in were wildly pro-Biden, because it actually does seem like the more radical, kind of center lefty types do actually think that Biden in particular is doing better and better and being more and more impressive. But the average person, not so much. The other side also sort of accused us of giving no arguments. But just to remind the audience of what those arguments in particular were, because I don't feel like many of them got responded to, we argued about the liberal values that it perpetuates, the optical advantages for Biden, the ability to get more airtime, to talk about your values, the ability to show yourself as distinct from a guy who looks, sounds, and thinks like he's halfway through getting melted by the Ark of the Covenant, RFK. So I do think we gave some arguments there that I think were pretty powerful and hopefully compelling to at least some people. And to maybe just get the point across, imagine how weak Biden would look if he didn't come to the general election stages. That would obviously, it's not going to be the exact same, but it shows something true about Americans, which is that Americans want their president tested. They want to make sure that the president is actually fit. And I want to say one more time, I really do appreciate all of you guys being here and being willing to have your ideas challenged. I wish that Fairy Queen had gotten more time to talk because she did really have some really good input there. And I also appreciate that IRI was willing to step up at times for what probably felt like a 3v1. But I do appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for the combo.
Okay, thank you. SDL, thanks for coming.
Of course. I think the case for having Democratic primaries is fairly simple. One, it encourages participatory democracy. It's, part of a principled stance for believing that more debate, more internal engagement, more competition generally yields better policies, better country. I think that it should be true of all primaries, should be true of all positions. So that's just the principles of the matter. I think second, it's free airtime. It's free fucking real estate. Just take it. If it's only cranks on the stage, then Biden crushes them. If it's real contenders, they put progressive policy on the stage. They shift the agenda back to real policy that actually fucking matters and on which Dems are immeasurably better than Republicans. So I think there's very little loss to that. And third, just speaking on the Fox News bit, Marianne Williamson, so I'm not going to speak to RFK. He spoke to fucking Breitbart, okay? He's got no principles. He's anti-immigration. He's a nutter, okay? He's eco-fash. But Marianne Williamson, when she went on Fox News, she spent 10 seconds being like, I think we should have debates. And then the rest of it talking about how important it is to have a minimum wage, how important it is to have universal health care. She did the fucking progressive messaging you're supposed to do on conservative channels right. So even her crank ass can do it pretty well.
Well, thank you, and looking forward to having you on my stage again. You did very well. I'm very impressed. Prime Kai, please.
Yeah. So I think that democratic principles matter. It seems like the other side didn't really care about those things, but I think they do. I think the principles themselves matter. I think that there is never a good time to do something risky. Yeah, sure, whatever, right? But there's always a good time to try to improve future prospects and to make a better society, a more engaged society, right? So I'm in favor of things that do that. Even I can look past this very moment in time, and because I think that since we can't, overall, that since society generally doesn't do that, we fare worse. we don't put ourselves in position for success in the future. Instead, we can always say that there's an emergency now. And so power as it stands should never be challenged. And I have a problem with that. I appreciate the SDL and Synth for tag teaming with me. I think we did need their intellectual heft to challenge Fairy Queen, because she made some great arguments out there. So thank you for that. And shout out to IRI, who, like, I've said terrible things, right? I called him a Biden supporter. I said terrible things about him today. But I actually do love him. He's actually a fantastic individual. So shout out to him. Shout out to Steven, right? Shout out to the BLT that he was eating before. I love that he engages with people down here in the lower ranks. So shout out to him. And if you guys enjoyed, anyone out there enjoyed hearing from me, I'm streaming right now on youtube.com /PrimeKai, PrimeCayes. If you want to come find me, I also stream on Twitch, but I'll be doing more streams on YouTube. So I'll stick around here for a little bit if people want to ask me questions. So or challenge me or say I was an idiot, whatever you want to do. So now's your time if you like. Come on by. Thanks so much.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks for being here,
great.
Prime. If anyone hates me, they have Prime to blame. I was forged in Prime's chambers, right? And here I am. Destiny, please.
I just like the progressives who are the king of deplatforming. I feel like every single motherfucker in this Discord at one point in time has called for me to be permanently banned. I like that the only thing it takes, though, to become all of a sudden pro-debate and looking at debate as a cornerstone of democracy is the ability to challenge an established Democrat with more progressive candidates. So I'm glad that that's all it took for them to find and discover their true love of defending debate as an important cornerstone of democracy. But as was said in the beginning, and I still feel, I think you need a really good reason to break from the norm of challenging an incumbent. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think there are strong candidates to do it. And I think at the end of the day, providing a united front against the insanity that is the Republican Party should be the priority of the Democratic establishment.
I never asked for you to be thrown off.
And with that, thank you.